Julie Mercier, Community Development Director for the town, and Andrew McNichol, Staff Planner. From the Cpdc, we have in person our new chair, Pamela Adrian, Don Weston, Nick Safina, Tony Durezzo, and over Zoom we have Secretary Heather Klisch. If you are here with us in person, please sign in at the door if you haven't already. Just want to let you all know this is the maiden voyage of this hybrid remote technology, so please bear with us. It is a solution, it's not a perfect solution. So with that in mind, we have the following hybrid meeting protocols that we ask participants to follow. So if you're here in person and you brought any device with you, please do not also log into Zoom. If you do log in, you need to remain muted with your speakers off at all times. For anyone, if you can please remain muted or quiet unless you are acknowledged by the chair, that would be great because the microphones we have in here are extremely sensitive and they can pick up sound really easily. So this right here is a microphone, it can pick up sound like anywhere in the room, and then we have these really sensitive mics up here for the Cpdc members as well. So any small noises could become very distracting, especially for our Zoom audience who's only seeing things on a screen. And then for the Cpdc, like I mentioned, these round mics here, they're really sensitive. They're intended to pick up your sound for the Zoom recording, for the Zoom audience. And please don't touch them or mute them. If you mute one, you mute them all. So we don't want to do that. And then this OWL system here, it includes a microphone and video that will track the audio and sound in this room. And it includes a speaker that will play the Zoom audience for you all to hear. So when you do speak, for this OWL system to work most effectively, you need to speak loudly and clearly, and it might take a minute to find you. So just bear that in mind, especially for the audience at home. If someone's speaking in the room and you don't see them right away, it should just take a second and then you should hopefully be right with us. So for the public meeting, the way these are typically run, the commission will hear a presentation from the development team. And then the commission will get a chance to ask questions and have a dialogue with the development team. And then the chair will open the meeting up for public comment. If you're on Zoom and you want to speak, there's a raise hand button you can use in Zoom. You can also raise your hand and I'll try to track through the audience and see if I can see you and not forget anybody. If you're in person, we have a little red and white sticky on the floor here. That's the best place to stand and speak for the OWL system. So if you'll just line up behind that, and I don't know if I made the aisle wide enough. If I didn't, just, do your thing, part the Red Sea. We will try to get to everyone in a judicious fashion. Please be patient. This is our first time using this technology, and there's a lot of people here. So, and then again, for anyone, Zoom or in person, please wait till the chair acknowledges you. And then when she does, state your name and address for the record, and please speak loudly and clearly. I think that's all from me. So, thanks. Tony?
Also, I would like you to remind the audience to address their comments to the board, not to any individuals, be it the developer or anyone else. Thank you.
Okay. The first order of business is a little bit out of order. It's the 40 Grove Street subdivision, Form H and lot release. Can we bring that up on screen? Thanks.
Sorry, something.
No.
It's not loading.
Yeah, and so we have Mike Santulo here on behalf of the forms. These are subdivision forms. The Form H is the covenant, the overarching covenant for the development. It's a form of surety for the town to ensure that the work gets done. We see it for all subdivisions. And then the lot release is a form that you need to sign off on so that the building inspector can issue a building permit for the lot. Also very standard.
Okay. We have people present from the Grove Street project? Yes? Are they online?
We do have Mike Santulo on Zoom. Let me just see if he wants. And there he is. Mike, did you have anything to add?
Hi, good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Mike Santullo. I'm the developer for this new project at 40 Grove Street. And as you know, this is a one-lot subdivision. And there's a lot of waivers which require not, for the whole road not to be developed. So we're just looking to have this covenant Form H signed so we can get the lots released and get that house done. I'm having a hard time hearing, sorry.
We haven't said anything.
No,
Oh, I know, I'm not getting anything, no. Do you have any questions for me?
I'm not seeing the waivers on this form. Where are they?
That's not required.
Not required.
You approve the subdivision, which includes the waivers.
All right, so do we sign this document here? Okay. Motion to approve or endorse?
Are we endorsing?
You're endorsing.
Move Cpdc endorse the covenant agreement, Form H for 40 Grove Street.
Second.
Okay.
Take a
Vote.
vote.
Take a vote.
Take a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Okay. Passes.
And the lot release.
Second.
And the lot release motion? Is there a motion from the floor?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Are we approving or endorsing?
Endorse?
I move we endorse the lot release form for 40 Grove Street, Nichols Estate.
Second.
Vote. Aye.
All in favor?
It passes.
So if the members here could just sign both those pieces of paper.
And so Andrew, do each of us need to sign it? Do you need me to come by to sign that?
It would be preferred since you did vote yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
I can come by tomorrow or Wednesday, whatever's convenient for you.
Yeah, I'll shoot you an email tomorrow.
So
Anytime
it's
should
on
work.
this page,
Yeah, there should be two documents. There's
that one and then the lot release.
just one.
And Mike will get you those forms, copies of those forms as soon as we can. I believe they need to be recorded as well.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
No problem. Okay. You all set? Next item on the agenda,
Thank you.
no problem, thank you, is the Chute Street project, 6 to 16 Chute Street. We have representatives here from Chute Street.
You have to open this.
You do.
Yes, we do. It's Jeffrey Ollinger on the Zoom call from Ollinger Architects. We should have Jamie Diggerty here as well as Patrick McCarty.
This is for Chute Street.
I
Heather,
have it if
could
you'd
you
like me
read
to
the
read it.
legal ad?
Sure.
Public hearing legal notice. Notice is hereby given that under MGL Chapter 48, Section 11, Section 10.5.11.2, subsection 3 of the Reading zoning bylaw, the Community Planning Development Commission will hold a public hearing on Monday, August 9th, 2021, 7:30 p.m. in person in the Select Board Meeting Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass., and by including participation through remote and online measures to consider an application for plan approval under MGL Chapter 40R submitted by the Plimsoll Company for property located at 616 Chute Street. Assessors map 16, lots 354 and 355. A copy of the application and accompanying plans are available to the public at Town Hall and the town website the Thursday prior to the hearing, and I apologize if I butchered Plimsoll.
Please.
Good evening, I'm Attorney Josh Latham here this evening on behalf of the Plimsoll Company. They're the applicant seeking approval pursuant to section 10.5 of the Reading zoning bylaws to redevelop the property at 6-16 Shute Street pursuant to chapter 40R as a mixed-use smart growth project. With me this evening are Jamie Garrity on behalf of Plimsoll, Jeffrey Ollinger, who's online as the architect, and Patrick McCarty, the project engineer. So with regarding to existing conditions, the property is a 17,980 square foot parcel of land. It sits at the junction of Haven Street, Shute Street, and High Street. It is generally triangular in shape, fronting Shute Street to its northeast and High Street to its southwest. To its northwest, the property abuts the commercial building at 5759 High Street and the single-family residences at 98 and 100 Woburn Street. Directly across High Street is the Reading Depot commuter rail station. Across Shute Street are the commercial condominiums at 2 Haven Street, the entrance to Brandy Court, which accesses the municipal parking lot, the commercial building at 2 Brandy Court, and a single-family property at 15 Shute Street. Historically, the property was previously a gas and service station from 1929 until the early 1970s. The site is currently improved with a one-story, 4,000 square foot, multi-tenanted commercial building. It was built in 1974 by Pat Bryant, who ran the laundromat for many years. The building is a flat iron shape due to the triangular nature of the lot. It is not attractive, built in the brick and glass storefront style of the 1970s. The first floor includes service and restaurant uses along High Street and at the angle of the triangle. The building is outmoded and tired due to many years of minimal updates. It is grandfathered for many code requirements. For example, the common bathrooms are located in the basement, and the only direct access to the basement is through an outdoor outbuilding stairway. The property would require significant updating and improvements upon any re-tenanting of the site. It would also be extremely expensive and difficult due to the nature of the construction. The property also includes a 31-space parking lot with curb cuts both on High Street and Shute Street, which is a one-way street. With regards to zoning, the property is within the underlying Business B district. It's also within the Downtown Smart Growth Overlay District. It borders the S15 district to the north and across Shute Street to the northeast. As such, it does constitute district edge and transitional area under Section 10 of the design standards. Pursuant to underlying zoning, general commercial uses are allowed as of right. This includes retail, restaurant, and office. The Business B district imposes very minimal setback and dimensional standards. 0 front yard, 0 side yard, 45-foot height requirement, 20-foot rear yard setback, and 85% lot coverage. Likewise, the site is located within 300 feet of the municipal parking lot, so it falls under section 9.11 of the zoning bylaws. The underlying zoning of the Business B district reflects traditional Euclidean zoning, which intends to segregate business from all residential uses, and it promotes maximum commercial development within business districts. Instead, the town enacted section 10.5 and the overlay district to promote smart growth within the downtown. The intent of this district is elucidated at section 10.5.1 of the bylaw. This includes, quote, to encourage mixed-use development, to promote development in downtown Reading that is pedestrian-friendly, to provide a diversified housing stock within walking distance of services and public transportation, including affordable housing and other types that meet the need of the town's population, to generate positive tax revenue and benefit the financial incentives provided by 40R, to encourage adoption of energy-efficient building practices and sustainable building methods, to ensure compliance with Mass DEP stormwater management policies and practices. So as an alternative to the conventional underlying zoning, the downtown districts provides an intelligent, more creative permitting option adapted to the times. The applicant proposes to redevelop the site as a mixed-use development project, including 2 first-floor commercial spaces, together with 33 residential apartments above, which includes 9 of them as affordable units, a parking garage underneath with 42 parking spaces. All residential parking is contained on site with additional space for guests or commercial tenants. This site is the ideal location for 40R redevelopment, located directly across the street from the depot. Its location promotes the use of mass transit, reducing reliance on passenger vehicles. It promotes a livable, pedestrian-friendly design, provides alternative housing options to the Reading community. It includes affordable units, and it builds a symbiotic residential and commercial use structure. Finally, it connects the downtown with Haven Street. With that, I will turn over to Jeffrey Ollinger, the project architect, to better explain the design concept.
All right, thank you, Josh. And I'm just going to share my screen here. If it's possible to share the screen to our slide presentation.
1 second.
I think the host, you enable it.
I think you have
We're
to
working
make
on
him
it.
a co-host.
Yeah. Okay, you should be able to do it now.
Okay. Still no.
No?
Why don't I make you host for a minute? I don't know, that's a good idea.
Yeah. If you can't, I can share the screen for you, if that's okay.
All right.
You should be able to. I don't know why.
I can send,
You might have made
See if I can
mic
link.
just go down to.
I can share it in the chat.
Yeah, that's his mic.
Oh,
Video
oh wait, never
line
mind.
down
You're
the
right.
line, I think.
You're here twice, that's why.
It's just on down.
Okay. Okay, try it now, Jeff.
Oh, great.
Sweet.
And good. Screen, pardon everyone. Okay. Present. All right. So everyone should have that on the screen now. Thank you again for your patience when we made the transition. So here we can see an aerial view of the existing site with our site boundary drawn over it. This slide we can skip through. This is our team members. So we have Jamie Garrity from Clemsol Development, Josh, who's done such a great job introducing the project, myself, and Patrick McCarthy, who's going to be our civil engineer. So for this slide deck, we'll have an introduction of the project features. We'll highlight the new public realm that we're going to be designing, as well as get into some of the details for how our building's been developed. This slide describes the project features for the building, and we're proposing 33 total new apartments with 12 two-bedroom apartments and 21 one-bedroom apartments. As Josh mentioned, we'll have 2 new retail spaces, one that'll be at the corner or intersection of Chute and High Street, and the other one that'll be closer to 59 High Street. We'll have a 25% inclusionary offering for this project at 80% AMI. And in general, our project is really seeking to enliven the public realm. We are building an accessible open space wherever possible, including a second level terrace. And we're also trying to create a continuous retail experience that stretches from Haven Street along High Street and up actually into Chute Street with this site. And so we'll also continue to green the space as much as possible. And so you'll see in our updated design that we have, nice new plantings, as well as we're adding multiple new street trees. And then you'll see also we have a new corner planter bench that we think will be very nice for the civic realm. Our parking, as Josh mentioned, we have 42 parking spaces at 1.27 parking ratio. So we're above and beyond our requirement. And as Josh also mentioned, that it's a sheltered garage, so that will not be visible to the street or the abutters. Also, a benefit to our new design or redevelopment is that we'll be closing a curb cut along High Street, which should net 2 new parking or street parking spaces that'll help to better support the retail tenants. Our features for the residential portion of the building will have a common, we put in quotes, it's a roof terrace section on the second level that'll also have a common room associated with it. We think that has the potential to have a more public use as well. All of our units will have balconies or terraces or open space. Having gone through the last year or so, we think it's important that people have the ability to get fresh air even if they're in their apartment. We will also have ADA adaptable units, garage parking as mentioned, in-unit washer dryer, and then we design our projects to a very high sustainable standard. And so we'll be following all the Energy Star requirements for this project as well. And then regarding zoning considerations, you know, again, I think Josh did a great job describing how well this project fits with the intentions of the 40R designation. We are substantially as of right, and our design exceeds the requirements in many areas. Okay. And so with that, now. So this is an overview of the site, and this is basically an extraction from the planning map. And here we have additional detail regarding the parcel information that you can follow up with after the meeting if you like. This next slide is highlighting the amount of sidewalk that'll be participating with our site. So as you can see, the Peninsula site, once it's fully activated, really does a lot to improve the amount of active retail that we have along High Street, and then also a higher quality of retail along Chute Street. We've also moved our residential entrance to High Street so that we have kind of one continuous ribbon of active storefront at the ground floor. These two are for reference primarily, but it gives you a sense for what the overall massing of the building is. On the left-hand side, we have the High Street facade, and you can see there our second level terrace as well as the community room. You also get a sense for, you know, the scope of the ground floor ribbon of retail. And then on the right-hand side, you have a view of Chute Street, which you can see the elevation change. There's a 6-foot plus elevation change to the rear lot line. And that kind of sets where our parking entrance is, as well as adjust some of the building relationship as well to the site. And then here we're going to highlight the new public realm features that we're introducing. So this is the new proposed corner park at Chute and High Street. And here we're showing a granite circular planter that'll be serving as a bench, as well as an operable glass wall at the nose of the building that we would like to have a sort of indoor-outdoor kind of retail capability if possible. We also have other benches aside from that. So we really designed it to maximize the civic potential for what this corner can produce. Let's see. Here we have a view of the the residential entrance, which is actually fairly shallow given that the parking garage is pushing up against the back of it. But we've been able to utilize that sort of that long edge of the lobby space to both provide a sheltered entrance and then a sort of a more minimal kind of butt glazing that helps to emphasize the transparency through the Chute Street, which you can see at the bottom right-hand corner of that rendering. And this is a view at abutting High Street, or sorry, 59 High Street, our house. And here you see new street trees, which we have several that we've introduced, as well as the retail 2 picture window. The second level terrace is visible on the right-hand side. That illuminated window on the second level will be the community room. And then we've also introduced kind of a gable form, and we can get more into the material selection later, but we're looking to ways to sort of architecturally blend and connect the architecture from the new project through to the older historic architecture. Here we have general building views. So this is the view from the tracks, obviously, existing condition. And this next view shows how we replaced that first story brick podium with our new kind of glassy retail. You see the long band of terrace with planters designed into it. You also get a sense for how the flatiron shape of the building kind of allows it to dodge and move, and so there's some interesting massing that develops out of it as well. It never really has the same presentation as you move around it, so it's nice that way. And then here is an evening view to give you a sense kind of what we could imagine the ground level street ribbon of retail would appear as at night. And then some of the softer glow coming from the residential above. This view here is the existing adjacent 59 High Street. And here we see the current parking lot entrance, the curb cut, as well as the one-story brick building with parapet. Our new project introduces street trees, and there's actually a little bit more, but we can see, again, the ribbon of ground floor human scaled retail, the long second level terrace that should be planted and nice, as well as I mentioned, the architecture kind of with a gable roof that's helping to transition in form and mass to the residential architecture beyond. So here showing that it still has plenty of life at night, and again, I think the flatiron shape helps this building to kind of conceal, any sense of mass that it might have. This view here is a detail of the storefront. And so here we see the existing building with relatively small windows. The new proposal will introduce much taller glazing, as well as the street trees that I was mentioning. And in general, will create a much more sort of pedestrian-friendly, inviting environment. And then in the evening and in the winter months, this will still feel as though there's activity even into the evening. This view here is our Chute Street view, which is primarily residential, and you get a sense here for the grade change, and we're proposing a planted wall that's screening the parking from the street, and at the bottom of that slope is where our parking entrance has been located, and then we have our second residential entrance, and then a wrapping ribbon of retail that extends around the nose. I'm sorry, and then also important, you also see on the upper right-hand corner of the image that we have our fourth story setback from the residential abutter, and then levels 3 and 2 are set back 15 feet from our residential abutters. That's a 25-foot setback at the top of the building. This view is of the flatiron nose of the building, and something that I really appreciate about this building is that we're at least attempting to integrate some of the ground level fenestration that we actually appreciate so much from Two Haven, which is on the right side of the screen, which marks a very a fenestration that's of a Georgian nature, etc. Ours, we're still conscious that that type of a delicate architecture is attractive in this setting, and so we are looking to see if we can have it present itself with as much richness as possible from this angle. You also get a sense for how much the that second level terrace planting helps to participate in the canopy and the green space in general, where we hope it draws the eye kind of across the building with with the use of plantings and greenery. And then at night, we get a sense for, how we've lined the insides of the storefront jambs with the bronze panel, which we'll touch on the materials in another slide ahead. But here you do really get a sense for how much that presents a very warm face for the building as it's looking onto the public square. And here again is a view of the corner part with the operable wall that makes the retail indoor outdoor. At night you get a sense for kind of how that space can be welcoming from multiple directions. I can imagine approaching it either from Haven Street or the train and still feeling as though it was a comfortable entrance. This view here again is a image of the residential entrance with its sort of more minimal buck glazing, so it's differentiated from a storefront in that way, but it's differentiated so it can be more transparent. And here in this night view, you get a sense for how, you know, when that lobby is active, it'll still really present a nice face to the street. These next slides we can go through in detail at your request, but these are I'll go through relatively quickly, just describing program. So here we have about 1,300 square foot parking garage. We have a 700 square foot lobby that connects High Street to Shute Street for the residential occupants. And then we have our 1,700 square foot, 1,600 square foot retail space at the nose of the building. And our second retail space, which abuts the second building exit. We're also pulling trash onto Shute Street. So we think that'll help ease the operations of the building as well, and not have anything on High Street that's not contributing to the pedestrian experience. This slide is of our second level. And here you can see all the terrace that we provided at the second level. We have a large roof terrace. It's almost 1,500 square feet, as well as a complementary community room. You see that we have a nice mix of 1s and 2 bedroom. We have allowed the 1 bedrooms they're going to borrow the dimensions and form of our most successful 1 bedroom units that we've used elsewhere. And actually 24 Gold Street is the one that has a very successful layout. And then we've allowed for the 2 beds to occupy some of the more odd spaces and the ones that may be a little trickier with a smaller unit per layout. Here, we've seen the 3rd floor, which is essentially the same gross floor area as the 2nd floor. And these will have individual balconies for each unit off of the living space. And then here on the 4th floor, we see the 2 terraces that we've created at the 4th floor setback at the abutter lot line at the top of the page. And then this also allows us to have very nice 2-bedroom units at that level as well. So we provided a range of sizes, and the 2 beds, the 1 beds are pretty consistent in what they're offering. And in general, the building is very consistent and uniform as much as possible. This next slide is highlighting the material palette for the building. And as I mentioned earlier, the building's primary material is a green copper patina panel that weathers. And we're complementing that with an accent panel that's of a more copper bronze tone. And you can see in the upper left-hand corner what that standing seam system would look like. Just below that, on the left in the middle, is an image of the Pritzker Science Center, or Science building at Milton Academy. And that is a very successful project that's in the middle of a Georgian campus. And Jamie, the developer, is also very familiar with it. So we think that this is a great precedent to show how this material can be attractive in a longer facade. In the lower left-hand corner, you'll see again, same building, but it has a glass inset with a warm accent, which again is kind of what we're trying to achieve with this project, where we're sort of balancing something that feels sort of classic and more muted, which would be the copper patina panel, with something that is warm and picks up light, and which is why we've used it also on the underside of the balconies as well. So I continue to advance on that. And so with that, that's essentially the presentation of our architectural design. And I'm happy to take any questions or pass it on to Jamie if you'd like it.
I have a lot of questions, so I don't know how you want to do it.
I think you just launch into them.
I'll say I have a lot of questions, but since I'm remote, I'll see what others ask, and if anything goes unanswered, I'll add mine then.
Okay. So you know I'm a fan of your architecture, right? But right now I have a lot of problems with the retail component, the outdoor space, and the number of units. And I think that the resolution is that all of those have to sort of move about. So this is a prime. Okay. Can't hear me?
Project more for the hour,
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right, so this is a prime retail location, right? And you're giving me back half of the retail space that's there right now. And I sat on that platform for years as I commuted in and watched people use the diner and the other spaces, and I don't understand why we would settle for less than half of what's there now for retail. That's important, I think. There's no outdoor space. You cut the outdoor space in half, right? The plaza, there's a little terrace on the other end. I don't think that's acceptable. There's nothing on High Street. There's no space on High Street if you hit the edge to do anything outside. And we've seen what the new modality is, right? Everybody wants to be outside when the weather's decent. So I really think that has to be addressed. The number of units is concerning, and I think that it's causing the mass of the building to overwhelm the site. That you have a 6-foot parapet. I don't understand that parapet. What are we trying to hide back there? If you don't break
6
that
foot
line,
parapet?
yeah.
No, we have a 4-foot parapet.
Well, yeah, from the roof line to the top of the parapet is 4 feet, but from the top of the windows to the top of the parapet is probably 8 feet. And so there's this big, unbroken, undifferentiated line that's gonna run the whole mass of the building. And, I mean, your Inman Square project is exactly this project, but you broke that roof line in several locations. I think if you end up reducing the number of units, you'll have more opportunity to break the building line for pocket terraces for the upstairs. You know, just for the upstairs, that would help break that up. But that 8 feet above the windows concerns me when it looks like just a continuous band. I don't know how you would break that
Yeah,
up.
let me go to that elevation.
You know, I think if you increase the retail, reduce the parking, reduce the units by about 6 or 8, that makes the mass work. And that, you know, that corner park, that's the corner outdoor space that's there now, you're cutting down to nothing but the tree. You talked about street trees. There's 2 street trees potentially. There's one in the corner and I think one over by the Our House building. Maybe, if I saw that correctly. I mean, then there's like detail things, like the light fixtures. I like those goosenecks, but they're all pointing to the glass. I'm not quite sure what we're trying to illuminate. They're all so low, right? They're not even highlighting the band. I think they'd have to slide up. Otherwise.
Yeah, we could obviously raise them up and you know, adjust that.
But see those street trees there? Those won't survive. That won't work.
Okay.
I'm not sure even what the street lighting is on that edge there. The Our House reference on the other corner, that sort of gabled end you have going there, I'm not so sure that I would base my build. I like the modernity of your building. I don't think you need to reference Our House. I don't know how long that building's gonna be there. It's not historic, right? I certainly wouldn't base my design on that structure.
Yeah,
Nice.
I like that as a contextual cue, but you know, I noted.
Yeah, I mean, if it goes away, then what, right? Then
Yeah,
you've got
that's
this sort of floating gable that does nothing. I don't even know what it does when it hits your building. Kind of odd. I like that you have this mass there that sort of addresses the terrace, but I'm not so sure that that's the right mass. There's no, in the plan, I know the plans are early and everything, but you really do need chases up to the roof for those retail spaces, especially if there's gonna be food service, which I think we wanna try to attract. You know, I don't need another, dead retail type space that sells, you know, odd handmade ceramic tiles or something. We really want something more active than that.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
And I know it's kind of, there's a basement there now, right? But you're not putting a basement in? I mean, that's silly. I know you wouldn't put it under the parking because that might get expensive for structure, but under the retail spaces, You could have it for mechanical, you could start saving a lot of space. You're already down there. You're gonna dig that hole anyways.
Am I allowed to answer?
Sure.
So the water table's pretty high right now. I've got 2 big sump pumps in the basement right now that are working probably like 15 hours a day. So I don't think a basement is really viable unless, you know, you take extreme measures to waterproof it.
It's probably an old concrete leaky basement. If you positive side waterproof it and you have sumps in it, you could
Yeah, I
put
mean,
mechanicals down there.
I'm happy to look into it. I think just given nothing else there has a basement, I'm sure that's probably why, but I'm happy to look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Haven Street had to deal with that as well, probably, right?
They do.
They've done it.
If I could just clarify too on the retail, so on the first floor, we have about 4,000 feet right now today. We're replacing leasable about 3,300, 3,350. So it's about an 85% recreation of what's there today, not including the basement space.
Yeah, but the retail, there's no storage, there's no mechanical, right? There's nothing shown on these plans that's not gonna eat into what you're calling retail square footage right now.
But I guess the 4,000 that's there today has all, I mean, that's if you took the walls.
6,000, right, 6,000 square foot building, you've got
It's not though,
3,000. Well, that's what you're saying on your plans.
yeah, well, I'm telling you my rent roll would tell you otherwise.
Well, rentable and gross, right?
Yeah.
Two different things. But again, you've got a basement. What's in that basement now?
It's a bunch of private offices that are month to month and some prep space for the Green Tomato.
No mechanical stuff.
There, the main electrical is down in the basement, yeah.
Not yet. Not yet. Hold on. I guess that's all I had really. I mean, that's the big thing though. I mean, the retail, the number of units and the mass of that upper section. I like the terrace and everything, but that's a big, long, look at that parapet, right? That's just one big, long linear. And we've already learned from the Haven Street parking lot side that long, unbroken flat mass. I don't want to see gables. I don't want another mansard roof. I like the look of this. I just think it needs to break up a little.
Okay, yeah, I hear you.
That's all, Tony. That's all I have for now.
Tony?
Nick hit most of them. I too am concerned about the number of units. I think we're getting into that territory where each of these are quadrupling the number of actual allowed units. Though I have a question about the claims that you'll have retail that's open on the weekends and nights. I don't see how you can guarantee that, so that there is activity outside of normal hours. I understand that you'd like to have a restaurant, but there's 2 restaurants there now, so I don't see additional activity. I don't know, some of the Google Maps are showing almost like a road or an easement through the parking lot. I don't know if that exists or if that's part of.
There is no easement, sorry, go ahead.
It's Patrick McCarty, project engineer for the record. There's a domestic water service that goes under the parking lot that would have to be relocated as part of this. I think that's the line you're seeing.
Okay. And as for major construction for re-tenanting, didn't a new tenant just move in recently?
It was a small hair salon,
Yes.
so I think they're in about 300 square feet with no bathroom. They have to go outside, down the street, down a dog house, and then down into the basement to use the bathroom. So it's grandfathered by code right now, but you know, that's a 300 square foot tenant who's doing all the build out themselves and doing it on a shoestring. So I think for a larger tenant, I think it would be very difficult to justify having your customers walk out downstairs and through a basement to the bathroom.
I don't think anybody wants you to save the building.
Yeah, fair. No, I'm just explaining kind of what, you know, if I were to re-tenant this, it would be a fairly massive undertaking, which I'm not sure is frankly worth it, but that's my opinion.
I think that's what I've got for now.
John?
Yeah, so a couple of things in addition to much of what Nick had mentioned. You know, always looking at site circulation and traffic issues. You know, the spaces are smaller than typical. I mean, there's a bit to work out in the parking garage. You know, we've seen a lot worse. But you know, you also need to make sure that it works.
Yep.
So, you know, and I don't know, there's a lot of compact car spaces there that may be okay, but you know, something to keep an eye on. I guess the two things that I'd want to get some feedback on is, right, if you've got this curb cut coming, it's not quite across from Brandy Court. I mean, it's sort of in this weird location that it creates a four-way stop that's not you know, it's not a good location, right? Because it's not far enough away from Brandy Court, but it's too close. So you know, that may cause some issues there, and it is you know, you do have some sightline issues there. You would have some sightline issues coming out of the garage there as cars come down that angled street. So something to think about. And then certainly, you know, something we always struggle with is loading zones. You know, Shoot Street is not very wide, and trying to figure out how that will all work. You know, the back entrance there into the lobby, or is there, right, there's an entrance off of
Correct, yeah.
into the lobby off of Shoot Street there, but you know, right in the middle of everything. So I think you've got some work to do there. I guess the other thing, one that I guess it is probably more unique to this space than pretty much anywhere else in Reading, and I'm sure other people will chime in on this, is having outdoor terraces overlooking the commuter rail is a bad idea. Those trains do sit and idle for a long time, pretty early in the morning. And that ends up becoming either town's problem, you know, when you guys go away, or the MBTA's problem, and complaints, and all of that. So you know, that's something that generally you want to stick away from, and think about providing some other sort of space for those people that don't force them to be those, you know, overlooking the commuter rail. That just leads to problems. So that's my list at the moment.
I just have one question for Mr. Ollinger. You worked on the 24 Gold Street project, correct?
Correct.
Why such a departure from the design guidelines to create this new building?
Can you be more specific?
I'm not seeing any brick, I'm not seeing any black railings, I'm not seeing anything that looks like the buildings that surround this.
That's not in the design guidelines. We don't make people use brick.
We don't, but this is such a departure from the other project that they worked on.
Yeah, the
And
24 Gold Street. No, and I understand.
and it
I hear you on
sticks
that one. And again, it's you know, obviously different owners, and also you know, we think that this parcel in particular, with its relationship to the train and a few of you know, that it has the ability to be more modern given its flat iron form. It's going to be an unusual shaped building, you know, regardless. And so we think that this design helps it to most with what's available given the site.
I think the design guidelines typically talk about quality of materials, especially at the base, durability of materials. For the mass of the building, they talk about breaking up the facade, and really, other than that parapet, they're starting to have success doing that. The fenestration is pretty close, and the balconies help break up that mass as well. But really, you know, the top of the building is probably what's failing. We could start to get into it a little more in detail and say that they need to have some more recesses. I guess they're using the balconies potentially as the qualification for the break in the line, but I'm not so sure that there's enough of that happening. It looks like there's some different materials.
Yeah, we can take a look, obviously, at things that we might be able to tweak with the massing. And I guess, Pamela, to your other point, though, we do have a significant granite base at the bottom of the wall. We believe that the copper patina panel system will look, and as you know, in terms of quality, is there with any brick masonry that you would put on the building. But yeah, I definitely appreciate you know, your comments about the architectural style being different.
That was my only
I'll
comment.
chime in, Pam, unless you have more. I
No,
don't want
please.
to cut you off.
No, Heather, please.
I think I can see what Pam is talking about, where our design guidelines do talk about sticking with the traditional New England look, but I'm intrigued by the design. Much of what was on my list has already been said, including I'll just echo, I have real concern about reducing the number of storefronts in retail from what we have now, which I think there are 5, just down to 2, and with the reduction of open space, where I would love to see this in the initial design accommodate spaces for outdoor dining. I think it looks like with the windows that open at the point, the doors that open at the point, that might allow for indoor-outdoor dining, but it's clear people want to be outdoors. And so I'd love to see that incorporated more directly. I have, let me see, a couple of other things. One is I have a question about who would maintain that ribbon of landscaping above. That seems to be a really important element for breaking up the mass and for visuals. Once it's planted, how is the town assured that that's going to be maintained and continue to look nice since it's so visible? I'll let you answer that, and then I've got a couple more.
Sure. Yeah, it's.
Well, I guess maybe Jamie,
go ahead,
as the owner, you can speak to that. But aside from an agreement, you know, with the ownership, I believe that would be the best way to guarantee it. But Jamie, I'll let you speak to kind of the building maintenance and what your intentions are towards that.
I think, Heather, I'm probably not going to give you the answer you want, but the landscaping would all be maintained by the building management, and I think the town's assuredness of it being maintained appropriately is somewhat of kind of mutually self-assured destruction if it is not, because it would be very difficult to tenant these units if you've got, you know, dead grasses or whatever ends up being planted up there. Obviously, the intent for us would be something that's relatively low maintenance but attractive. And I think to Nick's point and John's point, you know, provide some buffer from ambient noise from the train station. So I guess the short answer to your question is I haven't really gotten that far yet, but I understand what you're asking, and I'm certainly happy to discuss, you know, a way that gets you guys comfortable with it.
Yeah, I just want to flag it where, you know, there's a lot there, and if it weren't maintained, it could be a real eyesore. Along those lines, I'll say I'm really happy you incorporated some outdoor space, some common space for the tenants as well. I think in an area like this, it's important to do that. Let me see, 2 other thoughts. One is that I'm really concerned about what the impact of this building will be to the house, to the houses that face Woburn Street. So it's, you know, we might consider, there are multiple sides. I don't know what's the front, the back, but did I miss a view of what this building would look like from those homes?
It's in the package.
Kind of, I don't know if we have one specific. We have one in our planning application set that's included, and
I thought so.
yeah, let me see if I can. You hang on 1 second. I can pull it up.
So while he's doing that, Heather, there is a grade change in elevation of about it's about 15 feet, I guess, from where our finished floor would be to where the essentially the sidewalk at Woburn Street is. So there is some buffer just in natural grade elevation, in that these houses are looking at higher portions of the building. Jeff, I don't know if you want to speak in a little bit more detail to it.
Yeah, I think that's a good description. And let me open this up.
Yeah, I'll just, while you're opening it up, I was down there today walking across Woburn Street, and I can see that from, say, street level on Woburn, you're looking across between the houses, over the roof of the current building, you know, to trees beyond, and I'm like, oh, are they gonna just basically be, what are they gonna be looking at? Are there gonna be
Yeah.
windows? Is it a flat wall?
No, it's windows.
What is it?
Yeah. It's definitely a building.
Zoom my share. And, share, new share. There you go. So that would be the view that would be between 98 and 100 Woburn. And as you can see, they actually have multiple rows of fences from the street. And both of those properties have a tall, 8-foot tall fence that runs the length of the property line. So you'll see the top of the windows of our second floor. You'll see the third level, and then you'll see the terraces for the fourth floor with its setback per diagram D in the massing requirements for the planning guideline or for the design guidelines.
Thanks for bringing that up for everyone. Oh, go ahead.
And also, I don't want to understate the size of the trees that exist in the backyards of those two properties as well. We have a very large maple tree that is at the rear of 98 Woburn, and we have another equally large tree at the rear lot of 100 Woburn.
Right, okay. So I guess, and you're gonna get a shadow studies? Is that what I read somewhere in there?
Yeah,
Were they in our packet?
Correct. Yeah, we have. Andrew asked me to enlarge it, and I believe I have it on this package here. So here, he just thought I was a little bit small.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I've moved that to a new sheet. I'll send it over to Andrew when ready. But what's nice about it, obviously, one, as we just mentioned, there's big trees there, so those are kind of casting shadow in general. Most of the, obviously, afternoon, evening sun, late afternoon sun falls towards Brandy Court and the side of Two Haven. But in general, because of the fact that we're on a Flatiron site that's basically pointing south, the building itself is it's almost like self-shading in a way.
Okay, well, so I'll just be interested in, as we go along in ensuring that those houses don't suddenly feel like they're being overwhelmed by something that's just 15 feet away. And then the last thing is about Chute Street. I'm intrigued by the living wall. I'm curious about how those do in the wintertime. And as you think about the next iteration of design based on our other comments, I guess I'll point out that Chute Street itself is and has the potential to be a pretty key pedestrian walkway to access downtown from the library neighborhood behind it. So it's the easiest way to get downtown. It has the potential to be a really pleasant way. And I think that what happens with this building will make or break whether or not that becomes a more pleasant walk, or if it becomes even more like an alley in some place that doesn't feel so comfortable. So I'd love to see even any other thoughts about how to enliven that a bit more without, of course, impacting the house that's next to Columbo's there. Yeah,
of course. So obviously we're proposing right now the green wall, and again, you're correct that we'll have to have seasonally appropriate plantings on that wall. But yeah, no, we'll study that to make sure that obviously we're anywhere that we're adding new architecture, we want it to be improving the public realm, and it's again kind of indicates how central our site becomes as it becomes a collector for multiple different directions in town.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's the easiest way to get to the train station. It's the easiest way to get downtown. It's just right now not the most pleasant way.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay. Should I open it up to the Public? I'd like to open it up to the public to ask any questions. Please state your name.
Go ahead, you can go for it.
Hi, Attorney Nick Pavlidis. I'm here on behalf of Last Corner Inc. Attorney Latham provided a detailed history of the property, but skipped very quickly from 1975 to the present. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's happened in that timeframe. One of the first tenants, among the first tenants within 3 months of the building becoming available, was the Last Corner Restaurant. We have operated continuously there since that time. Behind me, I will defer to what the community prefers in that location and what objections they have to the building specifically. I'll let them speak for themselves. I don't know what they'll say, but I'm here to tell you that one of the other aspects that Attorney Latham didn't advise the council of was that the property is currently leased and that we are in the middle of a dispute. I'm litigation counsel, and my practice is centered in New York City, but we will be engaging local counsel and preparing papers to protect my client's rights, both with respect to the lease and otherwise. And that at the very least, this application is premature because the leases, and I won't litigate the issues here, but the leases contemplate issues that could keep the property leased to my clients and others who may prefer to speak on their behalf here for close to a decade or longer. So we are here just to advise the board that at the very least, this is premature. My clients have rights both under their existing lease and the use of their property to the extent any of the activities that are associated with what's being contemplated here will impede their rights, both under the lease or otherwise. We object on those regards. And also to the extent that it is reducing, we have here business owners who want to continue, want to be around, want to perhaps even pass on the businesses and improve upon their businesses, but they now have a cloud over their heads because we need to be litigating this and this application here. So I just want to state for the record that we object on behalf of on legal grounds and both under lease and otherwise, and that we reserve our rights. We'll litigate everything in the courts, of course, but that we do object and submit that this is at least premature of an application.
Thank you.
If I can
Yes,
just
you can
quickly
address that,
respond.
but you must address the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just point of clarification, I wasn't trying to gloss over anything. We all know the property is currently leased. I'm sure a lot of us have been to the restaurant. It has been there a long time. Green Tomato has been a great location as well. Nothing being said here tonight is doing anything illegal, breach of contract, anything. We're simply seeking a proposal to redevelop the site pursuant to the 40R district. My client is going to honor all leasing arrangements that he has. This is a private matter that certainly would be dealt with between the parties. And this is the first we've heard of litigation, so just to put that out for you tonight. Thank you very much.
Are there others who would like to? Please stand and come forward if you wouldn't mind.
Ken Nielsen, Grand Street. I would like to know where the HVAC equipment's gonna be on the roof. And how many tenants are there gonna be? 30-something? So you're gonna have 33 condensing units running on top of that building, and the neighbors aren't gonna hear it?
That's a good question.
I
Correct.
worked on 9 of them today, and I couldn't carry on a conversation with the guy that I was with. So I'm very concerned about that, because that is gonna give off a lot of noise, and depending on the quality of the equipment, it could be horrendous. There's an intersection at one of the T-stops in Medford. With my windows closed and my stereo blasting, I can hear the air conditioning unit running on the roof across the street. So to put all this in someone's backyard is not fair. And you mentioned the chaseway going up. Yeah, you're gonna need a chaseway for a lot of equipment going up and down through tenants and owners of condos. And if there's a problem, and you gotta open up somebody's wall, that's not gonna go good big.
Thank you.
Right.
Appreciate that.
No problem.
Please. There are two.
I own the Last Corner restaurant for
You have your
45
name,
years.
please?
have to go over
My-
there. Yes, so we can hear you. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Paul Pavlidis, and I own the restaurant for 45 years. Also, few owners from the building each year. Everybody has a lease lease more than 10 years, like the new owners, they just take over the cleaners, they have a lease lasts another 12 years, and I have 13 years lease. So it's impossible to start thinking anybody to do something with a building because we have a contract, and that's covered up from the federal, state, and even local government. They don't, it's a law by the state federal, nothing can do, break any contract, we have it with them. So I don't understand how that can be possible to somebody walk here, buy a property, it's already go in business and produce and raise the families for so many years, and all of a sudden take the building down and demolish just for money and make a profit or to look something better. I know the town very well. I know the people very well, and nobody agreed. Nobody wants to see at the depot built this 4 floors high and drove by and see nothing but those buildings, because eventually it's going to be the next building next door, cross the street, another building next door, and it's going to be really possible. And even the crime, because even the post office losing the mails, they're stealing left and right, and all those things. You know, you can see the signs from the police: don't put your mail there, don't do this, don't do that. So that's another thing. Another thing I want to correct: every business has their own bathroom there. He included, Mr. Tangos used to have a bathroom. Now they probably want to relocate the bathroom or something. The new people, they have it there. But everybody has their own bathrooms, including maybe even 2, every business. And the minute we open, it's all available for the public. We never had a problems for 45 years, and we're not going to have another 13 years. I wanted to be there. So about the green tomatoes, they have a space up and down. Now, the way they built the green tomatoes, they have 2 bathrooms downstairs. And the bathrooms downstairs is only for the offices, 5, 6 offices, the downstairs. So it was a misunderstanding the way they present. They only have 2 common bathrooms, and I never say no to anybody can walk from across the street to use the bathroom, and everybody knows that. So if everybody have a lease for 5, 10, 20, 13 years, I know mine, all right? How can possible be somebody to walk and try to pull and everybody out without even talk to it, without even discuss or anything, to just come down and asking for permit or anything, how he's going to build the building, and without even looking the faces, everybody's face here, to understand what's going on for so many years. They're talking about that building is so demolished, so it's one of the best buildings. About the pumps down there works for 45 years, the longest you want to work. If you don't want to work, you can unplug it and you can have a much water. We knew that from the very beginning. Their offices there for 30 years. If any accident happened and where I little water, they pump it out like houses that can happen to any house, that can happen anywhere. So it's a lot of things they produce here. It's to look very beautiful and you know, but you have to understand the leases we have, it's there. And I want to be there another 13 years, and I'm going to be there. I'm going to try even if I have to do anything. So like the lawyer, he say, it's premature to talk about something. He doesn't even talk to us. We feel like we're dogs and everything. I can afford to buy a house. I'm a millionaire. I have properties worth millions, but I never bought the properties because the property has the problems. Nobody matches outside in the parking lot. That's the problems there. Because over there used to be a leather shop and
know where this is going now.
No, I know, I think this is,
and
let me stop you
Okay.
there,
Julie.
and
yeah,
I
I was there.
Tom,
I think we really need to clarify what this process is about here. So they're here seeking an approval for the use of this property.
Yeah,
If there are legal issues beyond the approval that might happen here,
yeah,
that would preclude them from starting the project, but they can seek approval to do something on a piece of property anytime they want to.
yeah.
The approval will expire at some point, so if you guys are tied up in court, they'll have to come back again. You understand? So just because we might say yes tonight, let's say,
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're gonna knock the building down tomorrow. They still have to deal with their other legal obligations. This is not about that. This is about what the
But
site plan is.
I understand that. I understand, and I knew I'm gonna hear that one from somebody to tell me this one. I understand, but if he has 5, 6 years left, the other person over there somewhere, they have another 12 years left, I have 13 years left, it's gonna be cost to us to bring us into the court and bring their cause trouble into the building for the next 10, 12 years because he wants to build something more. All right, thank you.
we need to hear from more people.
I think what he's trying to say, I'm Heidi Keogan, I'm the daughter of the last corner, is that we are planning on litigating this forever, and this is going to end up being a colossal waste of the town's time until that litigation is done.
Not true, not true.
So,
There is a proposal
no,
that's in front of us right now.
Yeah.
And any litigation that you have is separate and needs to be decided before they can go forward, before they get their permits.
We never
okay,
have.
so, I just
We
think he's just
discussed
trying to
it,
tell you that it's
but
gonna
you
be
never-
coming forward a lot of times.
Well, when you're taking a guy's
You
livelihood
never
away.
asked the
I
question
hear you,
about
but this is not the place for those
We
issues.
we understand the
understand.
community's
It's
concern.
We do.
We've been there 45 years, and we do have a lease with options. He says everyone's gonna be out of the building in 2023, well, he's wrong. She has a lease, her first lease, it's at 2025.
this is
This
not
is
the
not the
forum,
place.
right?
I know
That's
it
it,
is,
right?
but it's
We,
upsetting to when you're,
We understand.
you know,
and-
I apologize. And what
It's
my
okay.
husband was saying about the land, check the dirt, it's contaminated.
That's another issue,
Yes.
sir.
Okay, that's acceptable.
Yes.
I thought you said to me.
We all signed. All right,
We do
Yes.
appreciate the community's passion about their stake in the community. We listen, we hear that. Separate forum.
I know, I just, you
Yeah.
can't help it.
Yeah.
If it was you sitting here, you would react.
right,
Yeah.
and
That's why
I
I'm
have
here.
sat in your seat.
Yes, I understand.
I sat in your
I
seat
know,
when 24 Gould went in.
right.
But we participated with the developer, and that's
Right.
something that you can
He
also
doesn't
do.
even come in and say hello.
Alright, let's get this guy going.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Brian Knight. I am a resident of 100 Woodward Street. My wife Jennifer's on the Zoom call watching our 2-year-old. We're really concerned about this. I want to highlight what Heather mentioned earlier. The drawing that was shown about what the view would be from the 98 and 100 Woodward Street properties is slightly inaccurate. There are 2 trees that are no longer there. We had them cut down December of 2020 because they were dead and a risk to the house. And we're really concerned about the privacy. I do the dishes every night and I look out and I see the Last Corner restaurant, I see the laundromat, doing my dishes, and I really don't want to see a huge wall of windows. Like, that is not why I moved to Reading. I used to live in Cambridge and we were packed in that close. That's not what I came here for. I also want to highlight the fact that I am asthmatic. I have a 2-year-old daughter. The asbestos was used in the 70s. Lead was used in the 70s. I'm really concerned about that. I'm concerned that for my child and for myself. In terms of the noise aspect, right now we really enjoy the fact that like most of the businesses are closed around 6 o'clock. I can have a quiet dinner with my family. I really don't need a massive light shining down into my house every night. My bedroom is right on that boundary, and so I feel like 10 feet is not a lot of space. We've also dealt with a lot of rodent issues. At the beginning of the pandemic, there wasn't a lot of activity going on with the restaurants, and so we actually had a mouse infestation that we had to pay for, and finally have it under control. We're really concerned that the tearing down the building and all this new construction is really going to hamper that. And finally, and I want to be respectful of everyone's this time, is that we are sitting on a ledge. If there's any construction, I don't really understand what is the impact of construction to the hill. We're on a fieldstone foundation, as well as many of the other houses that are on Chute Street, as well as Bloomberg. I haven't heard anything or seen anything about how that's going to impact the overall gradient of the building. Maybe the engineer can speak to that more. I'm only a software engineer, so I can't speak to civil engineering matters, but I would like to work with them, but the only communication I've received is one letter in March stating that the property had been purchased and a letter about this meeting. I implore both the owner as well as the board to really improve the communication, because we want to work together, but if it's simply like we're going to do this presentation without even a conversation, it's really hard to build that rapport. Thank you.
Okay. Julie, you've got some hands raised on Zoom.
Yeah, so, the first one at the top is the Reading Foot and Ankle Specialist. You want to acknowledge them, please?
Who is it?
Reading Foot and Ankle Specialist.
Yes. Reading Foot and Ankle Specialist, we'd like to hear from you.
Can you guys hear me?
Barely.
Okay, I'll try to be a little louder. My name is Caroline. I'm the owner of Reading Foot and Ankle Specialist, and I'm a Reading resident. And I have a concern that I'd like to share with the board. Is the main issue that we have in the lower downtown area is we have a big parking issue currently with our businesses. And I'm a little concerned that the current project is taking 31 space and turning it into parking spaces on the street, and that a lot of the local businesses will have to use Brady Court as their parking. And we've been on task force before that demonstrated that the town doesn't have enough parking spaces already in that area. And I'm concerned that, my patrons and the other local businesses will have even more of a parking issue.
Okay, thank you.
Can we address that?
Yes, please.
These are all private parking spaces in this lot?
Correct.
So none of the street public spaces are going away. You're adding some over at the curb cut that's being closed, maybe? That's correct. Can you speak to that, please, so that there's no further misunderstanding about what parking?
So there are 31 spaces right now in a private parking lot that's owned entirely by the building.
Okay.
There are 3 curb cuts, of which 2 are going to be closed, one on Chute Street, of which there will be no parking, one on High Street, which we believe can be replaced with 2 parallel street parking spaces. So it would be a net addition of 2 public spaces post-construction.
Okay, I'm sorry, what was your name again that made the comment? Caroline, so I'm trying to understand where your information came from or something, or what you're thinking is happening.
Caroline, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. The 31 spaces that are available behind the building where patrons that use all the businesses in that area can park, and those will go away and be used by tenants, correct? Because that becomes apartment buildings.
My understanding is that those spaces are only for that building.
Is last corner, the laundromat, their patrons use that parking lot. Now that that parking lot is going away, they're going to be used for tenants and not them businesses, which you're gonna have to use.
Sure.
They get 2 spots now.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Just want to make sure that we're always thinking about the same thing.
Right.
Thank you.
If I can ask a follow-up on that. So, how big is the curb cut on High Street right now?
Off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure.
But to get 2 spaces, you would probably need.
So the entire street from the Chute Street corner up to where the curb cut ends would be restriped as part of our construction work?
Yeah, if I may expand on that, there's the crosswalk that comes across from the train station. There's a gore that's striped, the hash lines.
Yeah.
There's a gore, and then it starts the parallel spaces, so if we maintain the gore and restripe parallel all the way along, you gain 1 spot. But if we shrink the gore smaller, then you could add 2 spaces.
I think the concern is the replacement retail will have 2 spaces, whereas the existing retail has 31 spaces.
You understand.
29 spaces.
Correct.
Yeah, people using up.
But usually a curb cut is about 24 feet, and therefore, if you're getting rid of one, you're only adding 1 space.
Right, so at best 2 is the.
Okay, that was all, thank you.
Yes, in the back, please state your name.
Chris Holmes.
Okay,
I've lived in Reading for 44 years and raised 2 sons here, and it was a lovely community. And I'm trying to speak for a lot of residents of Reading that I have met with, talked with on Facebook, and all you see is this is becoming a city. This is becoming Malden. It's losing its hometown feel. I mean, why do we have to have so many? Every in the last 3 or 4 years, everything is a big apartment house going up all through Reading, Main Street, down where the Reading Chronicle is, down on Prescott Street, the post office. Every time I look around, and now I'm hearing this thing coming up, and also the one on that I'm hearing that this is just talk, but where the Rite Aid was. I mean, this is just. You see the for sale signs all over Reading? We want to move out to the country. This is terrible. When are we going to become a city and forget the town? We're not a town anymore. I just had to have my say. I think we've had our affordable housing. We've reached that limit. Why the need for so much junk?
If I can address that some, we as a community of Reading need to accommodate growth. If we don't accommodate it, it's gonna be forced upon us in ways that doesn't work well for existing neighborhoods or for, sort of spread out around the community. If you look in our neighboring towns, the exact same thing is happening. That, look at what's happening in Wakefield. There's big developments in Wakefield, there's big developments in Stoneham, huge developments in Stoneham, massive developments in Stoneham.
Wakefield the same.
And we're doing, we're managing this. It was town meetings agreement and decision that they wanted to focus development in the downtown area. And so we actually, Reading, Julie, I don't know if you know the numbers off the top of your head, but probably not, but when you look at growth in Reading over the decades, we are not accelerating growth now than we have in the past. The difference is that it's all downtown in highly visible locations, right? There are hundreds and hundreds of units that were built in Johnson Woods, right? And all the ones in Reading Woods. I mean, there are a lot of other units that were not as noticeable because they were tucked in the edges of town. And so what you're seeing here is not necessarily additional growth, it's just growth that you're seeing because it's downtown, and that decision was made by town meeting. And so if the town of Reading doesn't want to keep doing that, there is a solution, right? There is a way to change that trajectory, and it's to go to town meeting and to make some decisions with town meeting members about changing the focus of our growth to somewhere besides downtown.
Can I just say one thing? Valerie Pedley is on last corner also. Check the Metro. They're using it as Airbnbs because they can't rent them. the 30 Haven Street is not rented all. How many more are you gonna have in Reading? You know, whether we're going to litigation, we're gonna cover ourselves, but it's true. Someone that lives at Metro told me today, they're using it as Airbnbs. So you're gonna have more Airbnbs? With COVID? Fine.
I actually have a quick
We have a
question.
couple of people who are also on
Okay,
Zoom,
right.
so we'd like to involve them
I
if we
just-
can.
so-
And maybe they'll ask the same question that
Right.
you might. Julie, would you mind bringing up Karen Merritt?
Karen Herrick.
Eric, sorry,
My writing must be
you're
pretty good.
writing. Yes.
Karen Herrick, did you hear us?
I did. I didn't know if you were gonna unmute me. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Can you hear me? You keep cutting out. Anyway, thank you very much to this property developer and the folks that you brought here this evening. I can see the care that you've taken in thoughtful design on this building, and I don't disagree with some of the other comments I've heard this evening. The point that I wanted to make at this point for the future of Reading is that we have passed a climate law in Massachusetts, so we need to look very carefully at new buildings, especially the larger, perhaps the more important. And I'm not seeing that this is a really sustainable design. And I think that anybody who wants to collaborate with the town really needs to go beyond Energy Star. I was doing a little research. Energy Star is not green building. It's not going to help us meet a net zero target of 2050. It is not going to help us substantially reduce our carbon emissions by 2030. So far I have not heard anything that is really of a sustainable nature. Although I will say that, restricting, perhaps by deed restricting, the green spaces that you've designed into the building facade. I mean, that's a good start. Green roofs are an alternative as well. So, I can appreciate the start that you've made, but we can't build business as usual and just hook into the natural gas lines that are running down High and Shoot. Like, that is not the way the future has to work. And you folks may also be aware, it was interesting to hear that you do have some high water table issues, because we did just have a complete building shutdown on Main Street, and we have 39 families, residents homeless. So that is something that we're going to be seeing more and more. So designs in terms of collaborating with the town really need to take into account, what energy sources are we looking at? Are we ready for increased ferocity of weather patterns, and not to by any point reduce the importance of any other issues that were raised here this evening. But we do want to partner responsibly. I'd like to welcome responsible developers to Reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good point. You have a high water table, you might have geothermal opportunities, right? That soils like that.
And one additional point, there's nothing stopping them from planting trees today. You don't need to knock down the whole building to plant more greens.
You want to go to the next person on Zoom?
Yes, I do. Garrett?
Garrett, can you unmute yourself?
Yep. This is Garrett Mielek. I'm one of the other providers from Reading foot and ankle specialists. I think it's hard for us to hear some of the stuff on Zoom. So I apologize for not being there in person. But I think what my partner Dr. Gauthier was mentioning is a pretty big concern. So there's 3 medical practices in the Haven Street. Reading Foot and Ankle Specialists ourselves. There's Reading Pediatric Associates, and then there's PDA Dental Group. As it is right now, our staff can't even leave the parking lot for lunch and come back and have a spot. So they have to eat their lunch in the cars. So our patients are also having issues parking as well. So what we're concerned about is that the overflow. So the overflow from retail, there's only 2 spots that are basically being designed for the retail customers. All of the extra overflow and the guests for the new developments are going to be parking in that Brandy Court lot, and our patients are going to have nowhere to park. So that's 3 practices that you're losing patients because of that. So that's our main concern. So I don't know if it was addressed. Is the Brandy Court lot going to be? Is some of that being taken out? I don't understand. That's not what I'm not sure about.
Can you respond to that,
Exactly what I
please?
didn't want to happen was this sort of myth about where parking is coming from or
Right.
not. Brandy Court Park is not part of this development at all. And your building takes.
Sorry, I'm not trying to specify that. I'm saying the overflow from it is right next to there. So there will unless you can guarantee that people cannot park in that lot, there will be overflow from retail customers and from guests. No matter, unless there's some sort of way that you can guarantee that will not happen.
Maybe they could do another parking study.
I don't think we've gotten into the details about providing for retail parking today anyways, because there's other issues to deal with still, right? But, if you went by the math, reduced retail square footage requires less parking. This building takes advantage of the same exemption that your building takes for being within 300 square feet, 300 feet of a parking lot. Your building did not have to provide retail parking. So that's something we're kind of trying to address now that we've reached this critical mass of development. We were a little more lenient with the previous developments because we needed some anchor buildings in there now, and we're becoming more strict about making sure that the parking elements work for all of the developments. So we'll have to discuss the retail parking for sure.
The only thing I would add is, how many spaces are on the train station? Is it 1,200? And those, at least since I've owned the building, granted, most of it was with
that's 'cause of COVID.
Well, COVID, but
They're
people are
always
back to
full.
work right now.
Please don't just speak up.
All right, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some opportunity to park in that lot after certain hours.
Certainly.
So again, we have to discuss retail parking at some point.
I have another hand up here. Yes, please.
I was just wondering, Heidi Keogan, does any consideration go into the public schools, and can they house that when we're talking about growth can the public schools house the potential influx of families that might be coming with all of these big buildings, or are they busting at the seams like they are in so many other towns, like they are in Wilmington and Stoneham and Burlington? So do you consider that when you're talking about units?
I know the school committee, when they develop their projections for future years, they go, I'm not going to guess, but I know they look out into the future, and they understand, when they develop those projections, they understand the pace of development we are matching, the town of Reading is essentially matching the projections for growth that the whole region puts together, and they put a projection together for Reading, and so those projections, those population projections, which have a specific mix of kids and retirees and stuff, that information is used along with a whole bunch of other stuff to project out the schools. So basically what I'm trying to say is some of this is already taken into those school projections.
Thank you.
We have another hand up, I believe. Kate Fallon is on the line. Kate, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hear me? Thank you. I have 7 issues that I'd like to raise as far as some of the components and then some of the comments that I've heard. The first issue has to do with the component of where the entryway is proposed, the proposed garage entrance. I'm sorry, excuse me. Kate Fallon, Manu Pelli, 2 Haven Street, number 207. I apologize for not giving you my address. I'm the direct abutter on Haven Junction. I'm also here with him representing the owner of the retail spaces on the first floor and a unit on the second floor of Haven Junction. So the first issue that I have is with the proposed garage entrances, almost directly where we exit our building and where Brandy Court begins. This is where we are able to access and enter our parking lot, as well as used to be the municipal lot behind the Atlantic before that building was built, and now utilizes most of the parking there. It's essentially perpendicular access to the entryway, and that doesn't make sense, as most of you know, as all of you know, how narrow Shute Street is. Someone's gonna have to enter and then almost do an entirely perpendicular turn into the garage entryway, and it's the wrong location for it. I'd ask the board to have the developer go back and have a relocation of that garage entryway. And despite what I've heard today, the Brandy Court is a well-used road, not just for people walking, but for cars traveling. And again, as I've told you, and as you already know from our building being developed, that's the only way we have in and out of our own parking attendant to our building. The second issue that I have is the location of the trash. It's right there, again, where we exit our building. And I'm not sure how they're going to have a contractor come and empty that. It's gonna block Brandy Court. It's just not located in the proper location. I'd ask the board to go have the designer go relocate that to an area that makes more sense in terms of the proposed development. Again, it's almost directly across from where we're exiting our parking under our building, which is where the town required us to locate our parking. The second thing I want to address, which other people have mentioned, is actually the low number of available parking spots. You're not talking about an exchange of apples to apples here. You're talking about utilizing the existing retail spaces for the residents. Let's face it, this is a residential development. That's what this is. So when you have 1 and 2 bedroom units, you have to have parking to accommodate those units. I understand it may not need a variance because of its proximity to the commuter rail, but you're considering a development that proposes basically residences. So when you're saying, well, they're replacing them with the existing parking, you're not addressing the existing issue that a number of people have mentioned to you already. And to say that you had buildings allowed and were relaxed with parking because you needed anchor buildings does not hear us when we say there are parking issues. I've heard another participant say that she's attended, I've gone to the same meetings. The other unit owners have gone to these same meetings. We've raised these issues to you. The building that replaced the Atlantic virtually uses almost that entire parking lot. So now our building is also vying for spots in that parking lot adjacent to Brandy Court. I just heard someone mention that we can lease spots along the commuter rail. That's not a correct statement of fact. The town stopped allowing us to lease those spots from the town, which we could have offered to our clients and patrons previously. So we have to vie for less and less and less and less parking for our patrons and our clients. So I'd ask the town to go back and look at this, or have the board go back and have the developer look at this, or as the previous commenter stated, prevent the use of the parking lot at Brandy Court, because you've already allowed a number of developments that utilize that, including the building that replaced Atlantic, which has underground parking, which is also making full use of that lot. So it's very difficult to get space in that lot on a regular basis. So essentially the low number of parking spaces and the high number of residential units is definitely going to have an impact on parking at and around our building for our patrons and our clients. I'd ask you to have them come up with a different parking alternative because of what we're already experiencing in the area. The other issue that I want to raise to you is the construction of the building on the water that exists under the building, and you've already heard about the high water tables, and that I'm asking the board if you will be imposing conditions and covenants upon the developer because of the pretty high likelihood that developing on top of what's already an issue with high water table may impact our building. So are you going to impose some sort of covenants or conditions upon this developer to indemnify us in the event that that development has an impact on us and perhaps the area residents? The other issue that I want to raise is the traffic. We've heard about, and I looked at the traffic study that it says it'll be no impact on traffic in the area. And of course, there's pretty considerable traffic congestion in the area. The existing traffic conditions, I don't think the study accurately reflects. The study was also done in the time of COVID when people were not out and about and working from home. And we also know that the ridership in the MBTA was reduced significantly. They went to a reduced schedule. I commute back and forth to my work for the city of Malden on the commuter rail, and they were at a reduced schedule during COVID because of the reduced ridership. So that traffic study really isn't an accurate rendition or depiction of what we experience when we access the area. The other issue is that I didn't hear anything about construction, although someone alluded to utilizing Chute Street for construction of this building. Again, it's the only way that we have in and out. So I'd ask the board to impose conditions on construction vehicles that they do not enter or utilize that area at all. What are the conditions that are going to be imposed in terms of time of construction, where construction vehicles are going to be located, when construction is going to be taking place, because we are using our offices and spaces and retail units in the parking that exists on one side of Chute Street to accommodate our patrons and clients. So are you going to be precluding this developer from utilizing Chute Street, where so many of us in that area access our offices and buildings? And the other issue that I wanted to raise, which I heard a little bit about by one of the select members, was the aesthetic, which is the building itself looks beautiful. I'm not sure about the sustainability of the building either, and I'm sure that's something that your experts in the town have delved into. But it was mentioned that it doesn't match the aesthetic of the other beautiful building that this developer is building on Haven Street, where the town has controlled so carefully and considerably the nature and type of developments that we can put there, right down to the signs we're permitted to put on our building, that we have to continually request permission, and it has to fit into this really particular box. This building is completely outside of that aesthetic, and I think that was pointed out by someone. And I think those are the major points that I wanted to make, and I'd like to hear how the town is going to address some of these, or whether or not the town or the board is going to go back to this developer to address these issues. Thank you.
Do you have any responses?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I think you bring up a whole lot of good points. I am 100% positive that this is likely to change. The development is likely to change enough so that that if they were to give an answer today, it wouldn't be the same as the answer that what the next set of plans look like. I think, right, the answer, the response is that those are all good items to keep in mind as we continue to see updated iterations of this design plan.
Oh my heavens. You're all set? Yes. Please state your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Cindy Noet, and I live at 15 Chute Street, across from this development. My concern is what is the proposed timeline that the owner is anticipating to construct this building? The other one, are the units apartments or condos? Apartments. And then our neighbor across the street, they have a beautiful oak tree very old and it's huge. And the lot line of the building is so close to that tree, because that tree is on that line. And the root system is probably large, extreme large. And we're concerned that that tree is gonna come down for the construction. And what's gonna be replaced. And then lastly is, I'm not too keen on the design. I like the bottom first story with the stone and the brown or copper inlays, but I don't like the green. There's so much green at the top, and there's no contrast. And then you have the green wall. So on our side, all we're gonna see is green everywhere. And yeah, we see a little stone-looking facade, but
You're watching a movie, I mean, oops.
so those are my concerns.
Okay, I do have a question about the trees. Can you address the two big trees? They're not on your property?
So they're not on our property.
Okay.
Cindy is correct that they're very close.
Yes.
So I've had an arborist come look at it. He seems to believe that there is a way for us to essentially create the foundation to protect the root system. I think to be completely honest with you, I'm so early in this process right now that I don't really know what the foundation is going to look like in terms of how it's going to be constructed. So I guess the commitment that I would make to you is I don't really want to see that tree go either. Primarily, well, I mean, I love old trees, but I also, it provides shade and buffering from our building, from you guys and from the surrounding neighbors. So
Yeah,
it will be something that I will look into, and I will certainly, remain in touch with you about that.
okay,
As for timing, it would not be something that we would do before 2024, so.
okay. And will you, or will the design team, if those trees go away, put additional trees on the shoot?
We would certainly be discussing some kind of a buffer system. But again, I think this is my first meeting, and I've been so warmly received that I need to go back and kind of think about how we're gonna do some different aspects of it. But I did send you guys a letter.
Yes.
You have my contact information. I'll certainly come over, knock on the door, and I'm more than happy to talk to you as much as you need to. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Sounds good, thanks.
Thank you. Yes, please.
It's Mike Summers on Lowell Street. I just wanted to bring up some general comments. I'm sure you've heard this cliche before, but think out of the box. I mean, these developments, people need to have a good roof over their head and all that. But like I said, like you were saying, it seems to be a lot of construction going on here downtown. Well, I mean, Reading's Reading. We're not Stoneham, we're not Wakefield, yada, 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 whatever. But you gotta think about, when you think out of the box, you gotta think about all the services, the police, the fire, the EMS, the public works, the water, the sewer, Reading Light Department's distribution system. Because every time a new dwelling goes up, whether it's a retail, industrial, whatever, you're gonna put more demand on the system, so they're gonna have to, upgrade their infrastructure. You can't fit a round peg into a square hole. At least I've never tried it. And again, the people talked about the school system. Well, right now at Barrow School and also at Birch Meadow School, we have those portable classrooms annexed to the buildings. I know they built wood in there, about 25 years ago. But, I mean, like, again, you got to think about the schools because, you figure you don't want to overcrowd the classrooms. That's why people move here, because apparently I'm part of the Reading. I grew up I graduated from Reading schools, a number of years ago, but still it has a very good school system, so that's why it draws people. I mean, Reading's a nice town to live in, but you got to preserve some of the town character. I mean, these buildings are, I mean, they're almost overwhelming, some of them, the height and everything. And when you think about, like, there's some commercial properties right across from the Reading Cooperative Bank there that are vacant right now. The old Reading Butcher Shop and J.B. Crosby. Actually, I knew the Crosbys. My father did. He knew them through business. So you got to think about all that. It's just, I wonder if we should just have to sort of pause a bit and wait till some of these properties that are already built are occupied, whether it's residential or commercial, you know,
Thank you.
retail. And then the last thing, the Bryant building, I remember when Pat Bryant built that, well, the two anchor, I guess, the two longest tenants are the Last Corner Restaurant and the laundromat, and they've been there ever since from day one, and they're thriving. I mean, obviously they're there, people patronize them. I mean, and we don't have any, I don't know if there's any other laundromats in Reading. I mean, I don't personally use a laundromat, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that do use that. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate your comments.
Okay, yep.
Jen Knight is on Zoom, yes?
Hi, thank you. My name is Jennifer Felstead Knight. I live at 100 Woburn Street. My husband, Brian, earlier brought up some of the main points or overview of points that we have of concern. My question is, there's a lot of concerns in the room and online. My question is, if this is not the forum to bring up some of those questions, what does the process look like going forward for bringing these specific concerns both to the board, the town of Reading, as well as directly to the developer? I know he did share his contact information, and we will be following up with him directly. But my concern here is really with the town of Reading and how what's the best avenue to communicate with them and share our really specific and detailed issues and requests that we have. Because I do want to note that in the presentation, the impact on the homes, the residential homes, particularly my home at 100 Woburn Street, was not even shown. And when it was shown and brought up specifically by Heather, she was the only board member that brought that up, and I appreciate that she actually went to the house and walked through to see what it would look like, how overwhelming the building would be, what an impact it's having on our privacy, on our light, how close it is. So I appreciate her going there, but I want to know what the follow-up would be for the town of Reading and where we can improve the communication and advocacy for residents.
Well, the answer depends on exactly which issues you're trying to address. Some of them need to be addressed.
Okay, well, so then my request to the town of Reading and the committee here is to provide a document that outlines specifically who the specific contact people are for the issues outlined above. So for example, requesting a shadow study, what is the rodent control plan, noise pollution and mitigation plan, grading issues, potential commercial space, privacy, and inaccuracies, gross inaccuracies of the impact that the building and the shadows would have on the residents. Basically, those trees that they're mentioning, even the oak tree, like it loses its leaves. There's no privacy. They're deciduous trees. One request we would have is it possible for the developer to include, I think they had included a fence. That fence is not nearly as high for the 4-story building. So one request that I'd love to see is what are the other options for privacy? Would they be willing to put a hedge of fast-growing evergreen trees there to buffer the two spaces? Because I'm sure it's not going to be very pleasant for those on the balcony or those in those residents to look directly into my kitchen and 2 of my bedrooms.
Well, I think I'll just jump in. For those types of questions, you're at the right place. You're making those questions known and doing and for those ones about the design of the building, this is the right place. For the broader questions about what are we doing in town, that gets to several different forums.
Perfect. So I will go through specific requests that I would like So first is regarding the privacy lighting issue. We request that the following additional information be provided for review. Updated drawings that accurately depict the new development in relation to its current surroundings. This should also include a rendering of the view as seen from the backyards of 98 and 100 Woburn Street. Number 2, a shadow analysis depicting the impact of this 49-foot, 4-story building on abutting residential properties from all perspectives. For example, from the building to its surroundings, as well as from the abutting residential properties looking at the new building. And then we'd also like to see some options for addressing the privacy, lighting, and noise issues. To this end, we'd like to request the following revision to the plans. We ask the developer to consider adding a row of large evergreen trees that could provide natural privacy cover between our properties. The proposed fence is not sufficient given the height of the building. We ask the developer to consider reducing the height of the building by perhaps putting the, 3 stories, shifting the outside area. We would consider options, and we would love to work with them on that. We also ask the developer to allow more space between the new building and the distance from the property line and abutting residences. As it's been noted by several people, it's quite close to the buildings. Regarding the commercial space, they highlight that it would be, it's largely closed on weekends given the current tenants, and the project anticipates, and I quote from page 5 of the narrative report, that they anticipate the tendency of the commercial spaces to offer a mix of uses that will complement each other and remain active throughout the day and into the evening hours. Our concern is the implications for increased noise and reduced privacy of the night businesses. Currently, as things are now, this is not an issue. And I'd like to know what regulations or conditions that the town of Reading or the board or whoever is in charge would be putting in place regarding the types of businesses that can occupy this new space. Our request is first that the town of Reading would place restrictions if they don't already exist regarding the types of businesses that can occupy. And our second request is that the retail operations close at approximately the same time as the existing businesses do. Noise issues, someone keenly pointed out the issue with all the building utilities. I'd like to know specifically where these utilities are going to be placed. For example, the air conditioning units. What's the plan for mitigating the noise pollution to these units? What's the estimated impact of the noise in the surrounding residents? As you know, we live by a train, it's quite loud, but in the evening, it's not. We are concerned about sort of the noise from the utilities, as well as from the businesses. If they have a restaurant that has a nightlife and things like that, what is the impact that's gonna be on our house? Specifically, an assessment, we'd like to understand the impact on the grading and drainage. This is brought up by several people. Our house is currently on a hill. The previous owner had done a lot of renovation as such, I don't know how you call it, to include a big, huge retaining wall on our house because the house was sliding down the hill. I'd like to understand more about how any excavation would impact the hill our house is on and its surroundings. And obviously, as my husband noted, they're predominantly fieldstone foundations. I'd like to understand what the current plans in more detail for the dumpster and removal placement. I'd like to request that the Department of Health for the town of Reading complete a rodent control assessment and develop or report back on what the rodent control program will be, both during the demolition as well as when the new existing building is functioning. As my husband mentioned, we have a small child and a husband living with severe asthma in the area. We are concerned about whether we're even going to be able to use our small yard for the next few years, given the dust and potentially hazardous materials that can impact the quality of our air during this period of time. So I would like to understand, or I would like to hear from the developer or the town of Reading what they are going to do to mitigate the potential negative impacts that it's going to have on our air quality. As Kate Fallon recently noted about the traffic analysis, I'd like to highlight that again and also request what the plans to mitigate the impact of the traffic related to this new development is going to have in the area. And I request that the analysis be done based on pre-COVID traffic patterns to most accurately reflect so traffic patterns as well as commuter rail patterns. I'd like to know specifically what the timeline will be over the next 1 to 4 years. I know it was noted that much of it won't be done before 2024, but I'd like to know that, like an outline of that specifically, and how residents will be informed and sort of updated on that project so we can do our own due diligence to understand what the impact of this project will be on both our living conditions as well as our properties.
Jen, I'm gonna stop you there. I think you've made some valid points. I think we need traffic studies, certainly, but going back historically, I think that might be hard to do since we don't have that information at hand right now for the pre-COVID situation. So the only thing we can do right now is to analyze the traffic study, analyze the traffic from what we have right now. And you've got to understand we have two big projects, one on Gould Street and certainly the landmark property on Haven. That impacts traffic as well, and that will change. So we have to be honest with the developers that they're not necessarily dealing with from a straight deck, and they don't have the information available.
Jen, do you have all those questions written down? Can
Yeah.
you email those?
Yes, I do. I have a long document. I thought Brian would have the opportunity to read through it, but I understand, you know, he got up early and there was a lot of people waiting, so we wanted to be respectful of the time and everybody's concern, but I have a very organized document that details all of these concerns, and I'm happy to send it to the right person if you can direct me to them.
Yeah, I would send it to Andrew, I guess, and that way he has it written down and we can be more accurate with responding to those.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Great, thank you so much.
You have one more hand in Zoom.
One more hand in Zoom, and then we have another gentleman here. And we need to wrap this particular issue up. Okay. One on Zoom, who is it?
It's Larry Muse.
I'm actually in person. I just figured I'd digitally raise my hand.
Sneaking up on
Lawrence Muse, 217 Lowell Street. Couple of things I see is coming down Haven Street, that building is gonna be a lot closer to the pie. So right now, the building is set back. So now that building is gonna come forward. How is that gonna look to the person driving down Haven Street that I almost get into accidents daily there? That was the first thing. The second is the loading zone and trash area. Is the sidewalk going away? These plans are very, like, misleading. Like, it doesn't look like any sidewalk. It looks like they're taking out the sidewalk.
No, where are you looking?
Right here. Right here. Right on Chute Street.
No, they're just highlighting, the yellow is just highlighting. the
Oh, so it
sidewalk.
doesn't end here?
No,
So the loading zone is gonna be in the middle of the street?
I don't know.
I'm just wondering. I'd like to move in, like, just shut down Chute Street and load up.
No, it says Bitcoin sidewalk on the plan. It's
Is
not
it?
highlighted here.
All right, and then the only other thing I see,
But if I could, your point about loading zone is valid and we always.
Yeah. And then looking at the overview, it looks like our house and this building are really close together. Both these buildings have fire alarm systems, but what's gonna happen if a fire starts in between those two buildings? That's very deadly for a firefighter.
So we will have, right, the fire department and the police department always looks at plans and provides input. You know, it certainly when the plans get a little bit more developed. So we will have input from Reading Fire on
All right, yeah,
those
because
sorts of issues.
that looks concerning there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Please. Name?
Mike Monahan, Bancroft Ave. My family and I have been living in Reading for almost 25 years. We moved here because it was a nice residential bedroom community with a reputation for good schools and good families and low population density. We did not want to live in an overbuilt city like Lawrence or Somerville. However, with every passing year, more oversized multi-unit monstrosities are built in Reading, and Reading increasingly perverts more and more into a city closer to Lawrence or Somerville. The result is that we no longer live in a town but a city. When I walk through downtown Reading, it is through a canyon of large, oversized multifamily units. As a board, I ask you, please consider working with our state legislators to repeal or repair 40B and 40R that is choking Reading. For those of you watching on TV that are part of town meeting, I ask that you work together towards a goal of either erasing Reading's commitment to the 40R overlay or working with our state legislators to repeal or replace 40B and 40R. I ask the board, why is Reading consistently allowing more and more large multifamily monstrosities with each passing day? Is a 40R capitulation an effort to avoid 40B housing? If yes, are we not by now at 40B minimum requirements? And deviating from my notes, it just seems like we're chasing a phantom we're never going to catch, because with each new building that goes up, the denominator on that fraction for 40B increases and the numerator is never going to catch up. So it seems like an impossible mission to ever meet our 10% quota. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
I guess I would say that, yeah, it is always if we look at this in terms of we're developing so that to chase the 40B thing, yes, it's crazy the whole way it works. You know, the next time we get a new census, we'll have another set of numbers. But I think that, and thank you for asking town meeting, right? If the town meeting wants to make a decision, then that's the forum for that discussion. I would rephrase the question. I wouldn't rephrase the question in terms of how do you stop development, because we can't, right? Reading can't, there's no town in Massachusetts that can stop development. Or really anywhere, probably anywhere in the Northeast, if you want a vibrant community, you can't stop development. I would rephrase that question of how do we shape development in the way that we want it for in this town, right? We're not going to stop it. We need to make sure that we develop in a way that the community wants to develop, and our zoning is set up right now. We are developing in the way that town meeting has told us to develop. So if we want to do something different, then we need to go to town meeting and say that. But it's not a question of stopping development. It's a matter of shaping it the way that works best. That's my take.
I think we need to hear from the developers again with some changes, responding to some of the issues that they've heard. Loading zone, parking for retail needs to be considered. Massing.
Yeah, mapping, number of units, all of that.
Providing trees as a buffer certainly is important.
Shadow analysis.
Shadow analysis is another one, traffic study. We'll need that under current conditions. Right. There's nothing else we can do but use current conditions.
Yeah,
we-
I mean,
they
it's,
just so we, Green International did the traffic report, they've done a lot of work in the town. They extrapolated most of the traffic generation trip data from pre-COVID. So what we're talking about, just so we're clear, is 10 new trips in the morning during peak hours, which is 1 car every 6 minutes. And in the afternoon, 2 new trips during peak hours, which is 1 car every 33 minutes. So I do not think, and we have to realize that we've got an existing retail operation here that has traffic. So we're comparing it against what I have today versus what we're building, and the effects are minimal at best. And I'm happy to provide that information.
Yeah.
I don't think it's traffic.
traffic is not really an issue on this development. I think the issues surrounding cars in this development are parking.
Sure.
Are circulation off-site, it's the driveway location and sight lines. It's circulation on-site, because I don't think your turning movements work in your parking garage. But that goes back to how many parking spaces are you trying to fit in there, and if you have less parking spaces, then you may get to a spot where
I will say,
where
John,
it
just
works,
that
you
Green
know.
did do a parking turning radius of the garage, which did.
Well, yeah, from the main movements, but you can't get it in all those spaces. You can't.
I'm happy to, I will provide it to you guys,
yeah.
it does work.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as I can do out of turn,
Right, great,
which is not
great.
at all.
So I-
10 seconds, from a traffic perspective, 1 car every so many minutes or whatnot in the afternoon. That doesn't take into account the extra 29 spots that they're losing for retail customers circling to try to find spots.
True, but what you also need to recognize is the way that generally, right, we all look at parking is in terms of level of service of intersections. Even though, right, from a Reading perspective, if we go back 40 years, yes, we have congestion in town, but no one is waiting at intersections for 60 seconds, for 90 seconds, which is when you start to ask for, more mitigation, except for in all of those places, in the main intersections that we know happen. And so those couple of, not at the intersection of Shoot and.
Sure,
and
I would just think
so-
if the only parking is street parking, then you'll have cars double parked, cars waiting to parallel park, cars circling around trying to.
Perhaps,
find
yes,
parking.
and
That affects traffic.
right, and that's what we said is parking, the issue is parking and circulation,
yeah,
yes, not flat out,
Not straight
trip
traffic.
generation, yeah.
Yeah, and that baseline movement from northbound from High Street onto Shoot Street, Cascade Street.
That's dangerous.
It is.
It's dangerous, yes, yeah,
Like the
and
gentleman
which is
said,
why
now-
the sightline issue is significant.
And that's not your issue necessarily, it's exacerbated by somehow blocking up Shoot Street and that car is stopping in front of you and potentially, as they see from movement. So that's something that we need to look at in detail, not being a problem.
Yes.
Just really, I guess hopefully to close for tonight, we've been listening to a lot, we've heard a lot, we've been taking copious notes, and certainly we'll stay in touch with town staff to make sure that any written comments that are submitted are also provided, so we can address those for the next hearing. I would request a continuance.
Yes.
Thank you.
Agree. Julie, do we have a time on the calendar?
Yeah, so your meeting next week, the agenda's already set, obviously that's too soon. There are a couple slots on the September 13th agenda and slots on the October 4th agenda. I might recommend October 4th if it's something that the development team is available to, give them more time.
We could like to do September 13th, we feel as though we have a lot in hand that we need to get done.
I'm open to whatever you guys want, it doesn't matter.
It's gearing up to be a pretty busy week.
Okay, so why don't we, if we actually redirect, we can request the October date.
So, it's so hard to play puppeteer with all these projects. What's gonna happen and when? I guess we could do 8:30.
Motion to continue the application for, what's the address, 616 Shoot Street until October, what did you say?
October 4th at 8.
October 4th at 8 o'clock.
8:30.
8:30.
Yeah, and Chris.
All in favor?
And I just want to make a quick comment for those of you in the
Yeah,
audience
raise
who
your hand, too.
know some of the people who have left the room. Please let them know because there will not be another notification from the town hall about this. The first one that we sent is the one that we send. Okay.
Everyone's gonna know.
Okay.
It's
all right.
8:30?
Yes.
8:30.
It'll be known way before that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
No problem. Don't think it's dangerous.
No, I figured.
You're right.
Going.
Well, yourself? Well, how are you, Jim?
This is what.
It's a pleasure to meet you in person now.
I know.
For real?
Raise some what kind of questions?
You have a break or something?
Thanks,
Whatever's fine, I just.
Check a few windows.
Yeah.
It's so hot here. I know.
Want a copy too?
Oh, great. Thank you.
And next on our docket is 18 Woburn Street. Yes.
Good
How do
evening.
you keep it straight?
Attorney Josh Latham here tonight on Cpdc Contracting, to the applicant under 40R for Smart Growth Project at 18 Woburn Street. We last appeared you in April 12th, appeared before you on April 12th. We opened on March 8th, we continued from that date. I'm going to hold for a moment.
Julie did a great job of quieting them down. Thank you. They'll be back.
So we've made some changes to the plans since the April meeting that we had with you. As you may recall, the original concept proposed providing our access to the underneath garage through the municipal lot. That would have required dedicating at least one parking space within the lot to our private access. We did appear before the Board of Selectmen. It became very clear politically it was too difficult a subject. There's too much to worry about what might happen with the lot in the future. I think it was an ideal way to do an access, but we certainly understood that. We've gone back to the drawing board. We were scheduled to appear before you on 2 other occasions, but I would say the reason for those continuances is to make sure we get it right tonight. And it was both redoubling our efforts, double, triple, quadruple checking all of our engineering and design for the parking and the access way. So where we are this evening, we have Giovanni Federa here tonight, who's our engineer, and he's going to give a quick overview on how this new access way works. We also have John Seeger online. He's also going to speak to the architectural changes resulting from the access change. High-level differences. We still have a first-floor commercial space with 2,350 square feet. We have reduced parking from 9 to 8 spaces. The residential units have been reduced from 7 to 6. The height has increased to account for some ceiling height requirements in order to get into the underneath garage. It still conforms with zoning. We did keep the 490 square foot deck for the commercial use overlooking the municipal lot. And we're still proposing to dedicate 3 to 5 feet of width along our property line to the right of way, which increases it from the existing 15 feet to, I guess it would be close to 20 feet at the throat, and then it gets down to about 3 feet added near the end. So with that, if I could turn it over to Giovanni to give a quick description. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Giovanni Federa. So I'll just go over some of the redesign of what has happened, and if we can just share the screen. C2 is a good starting point, and C2, there you go. Yeah, so I made an exhibit on the lower right-hand corner. It's the vehicle turning radius and sight lines exhibit. So really, we just wanted to, make sure that the parking and getting into the parking lot works. It's feasible, works for passenger cars, and so I did show the passenger car turning into the parking spot number 8, which would probably be the most difficult parking spot in that garage. And it does meet it. It clearly shows that on the simulation, it meets it very well. I even wanted to get a perspective of a traffic engineer, the same traffic engineer who did the transportation study. We gave him a call and just, ran through the project, and he even agreed that making that turn into the parking lot was totally feasible. He didn't see any problem with it. And even myself, as an engineer, I totally agree with him. Another thing that I added to that exhibit are the sight lines. Are the cars driving down the right-of-way? As you know, it's going onto that right-of-way, the CVS parking lot, and it's a one-way. A little tight, but the question is, are cars going to be able to see, coming down the street, and are they going to see inside for vehicles coming up? Likewise for vehicles coming out and looking up to the cars coming down. So I show the sight lines. The red lines are the sight views for vehicles coming down the right-of-way. The blue line is the vehicle looking up to the right-of-way. And you can clearly show through the openings, as you'll be able to see on the architectural renderings, that it clearly has good vision of vehicles and sight distance, sight lines, and again, it's a slow moving area, so they'll it's not like they're going to be merging really quickly. So I totally believe that the redesign is probably the best design we've come up with for what we're working with, and another question is, the columns that are going into the garage, are they going to impact parking spaces in the size? Now, we do have a column that's right in between parking spot 1 and 2. That's a 1 foot by 1 foot column, and it's parking spots 1 and 2 are separated by 1 feet. So, I mean, if by any chance structurally that column had to increase slightly, right, it would not be encroaching into the parking spaces significantly. Where, I've seen a lot of parking garages where they have a large column that's, totally into parking spaces. So this, I truly believe that, the columns would not be impacting parking spaces, and I think it's a totally practical design. Moving on, we had concerns of coming into the right-of-way. We all know it's a 15-foot wide right-of-way. We also know that cars are currently parking on site, and I show them here on sheet C5, and I also show them on sheet C4. So this is probably the most severe turning radius for a vehicle turning into the lot, which would be, a delivery truck, wheelbase 40, which is the standard size for a delivery truck going into the parking lot. And it's a lot more severe than the fire truck. So if we can prove that the wheelbase 40 meets it, for sure the fire truck would be able to meet it. But however, I did show on this exhibit the location of the proposed building, as well as the locations of where the cars are currently parking on site. And it clearly shows that the existing conditions are a lot more tighter, so by moving the building, a couple feet in, compared to where the existing cars are, it's definitely making the turning radius better, from what it's doing today. And today they do seem to, the delivery trucks, they are making the turn in. I have videos of delivery trucks turning in this condition right now, and they do it fairly well. So by making this better, they would be a lot more comfortable.
And those are 18-wheelers?
Those are 18-wheelers, correct.
So that plan, the top, the left plan there shows the rear wheels of the truck crossing over the sidewalk?
No. So that was a concern for that was brought up previously. I did adjust it so that it's not crossing over onto the sidewalk.
Okay, so why am I seeing it
I'm
crossing
seeing
over?
it here.
Crossing over the sidewalk?
Yeah.
On the curb? Oh, yeah, so.
That hash mark area.
Yeah, the hash mark. So that curb right there, it's not gonna be a 6-inch vertical granite curb. It's gonna be a mounted curb where they have them a lot of times in, tight rotaries where the center of the rotary would have a mountable curb.
Right.
You can drive on top of it. So that's what would be located on that curb right there. You can drive on top of it, but it clearly delineates a sidewalk in the street. It would not be a vertical curb, 6 inch,
I
yeah.
understand the construction of it, but the
Yeah.
wheels are still crossing over that portion of the sidewalk.
The sidewalk, and the sidewalk is a flush sidewalk.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, no, but functionally, it's a sidewalk, and so,
Mm-hmm.
there's the potential for somebody to be walking on the side.
True, and you would hope that whoever is walking up the sidewalk and whoever's driving, making that turn in, that they would, accommodate to work together,
Yeah, I've lost all hope in humanity. I don't think
So I have actually a really specific example on this. So say there's a kid, an 11-year-old kid who's standing on the curb waiting for the truck to go in. They aren't as experienced with driving. How is it? I understand how it's constructed also. How here could it be kind of clearly delineated, like don't stand here and wait for the truck to turn in because you're going to get hit?
Okay, good question. I mean, we can add paint marks on the sidewalk, and we can come up with some type of solution to.
I'm just thinking like here, this is an area, speaking of CVS, it's an area where you've got groups of kids coming down, and while an adult might be wise and look around, kids might not.
Mm-hmm, that is true. And I do want to mention right now, there is no sidewalk on the right-of-way, on the street coming down. And so when cars are parked, where they're parked right there, people are walking up that sidewalk, and it's really not safe at all. So in the condition of what it's doing right now, they would be walking even closer into the street, into the right-of-way. And so with that sense, and there's no sidewalk. So, people are doing it now where they're avoiding trucks are avoiding pedestrians. So the fact that it's working in the existing conditions, we're making it better, we're improving the site, it should be working in the proposed conditions.
So you're
even
not
better.
going to permit 2 vehicles to park on the sidewalk?
We will not be. That is correct.
So you'll make sure that there's a sign that says no parking this side?
The reason why that people park there is because the existing pavement is actually into the proposed building location. So there's painted lines that's on site. So there's painted parking spots,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is on site.
Which is an invitation, got it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So once the sidewalk is there, people are gonna get the gist, there's no parking here, yeah.
I should just clarify really quickly that any proposed treatment of the sidewalk would need to be approved by the town engineering office, as well as probably also the parking traffic transportation task force if it's not like standard.
And any signage as well.
So, and I did show the fire truck exhibit. I know there was a comment about the fire truck. This is on sheet C6. There was a comment about the fire truck, taking the turn in the backswing of the truck would kind of go over the sidewalk. That would be located on the right-hand side. And so I just adjusted that to show that, you can make the turn without having the back of the fire truck swing onto, and over the sidewalk. So I did adjust that. And, but yeah, so as Josh mentioned, the building did raise a little bit, and that was due to, vehicle clearance of entering into the site, into the garage, right? And so we're fighting the grade at the entry point, and so we had to raise the first floor elevation a few extra feet and then we stepped it down into the front of the first floor. So we can accommodate getting into the first floor and then raising it with a few steps. And you'll see that on the architectural plan. So the ceiling height in the garage has two different ceiling heights from the step, right? And the ceiling, where it steps, is shown as a dashed line. If you go back to sheet C2, it is shown as a dashed line on the bottom right-hand exhibit. So the dashed line is pretty much right at the starting point of parking spots 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then it cuts down towards the handicapped area and then cuts across through, parking spot 4. And so the entry point, the vertical clearance, we have, it goes from 10 feet 2 inches to 8 feet 2 inches. So from the highest to lowest. And within the drop, that step, we have a vertical clearance of 7.5 to 8 feet. So, no matter where you're driving within the garage, it's going to be graded so that it satisfies the ceiling and vertical clearances for all vehicles.
Including SUVs.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that gives you a 3 foot 8 inch step inside that retail space.
Yeah, and we'll go through that. I'll have John Seeger, the architect of the project, and I'm sure he'll go through that. And that's pretty much what I have for engineering. So if we just pass it over to John, I believe he's on Zoom. So.
John, are you there?
His name is there.
Is he muted or
Well,
not?
well, we wait for him if I have a.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess my concern is that in looking at the turning radius, is that you're doing that, auto turn with a compact car.
So just to clarify that, the vehicle library that I have, right?
Yeah.
It uses AASHTO specifications.
Yeah.
So for highway design. So AASHTO specifications for a passenger car is 19 feet in length and 7 feet wide.
Yep.
Clearly, passenger cars are not that size. So just to clarify, it's the size that I adjusted it down to is 17 feet in length and 6 feet wide. So I didn't want to call it a passenger car because, a passenger car, according to AASHTO specifications, is a different dimension.
I
So
guess the bigger concern or the bigger issue in this is the turning radius, which you don't have listed on the sheet of what the turning radius is in the car that you use for the in auto tune on auto. turn.
I use the same turning radius as the passenger car from the AASHTO specifications.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but just to clarify,
With the 24.
it's not a compact car realistically. I mean, what car do you know that's a compact car that's 17 feet in length?
No. I recognize
it's
that.
More,
right.
It's more like a Ford F-150 realistically.
Because you can't tell on here is right. The compact car in AASHTO has a turning radius of 19 feet, where the regular car has one at 24 feet. And so, right, and that 24 feet is legit, right, for as a need for F-150,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so the lengths and the dimensions of cars have changed, but that turning radius in AASHTO in the AASHTO design guidelines, that's still legit for those turning.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that you're using that 24-foot radius in here.
When I modified the passenger car, all I modified was the length and the width.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Any other I should open it up to the board. Any more comments or questions?
Is John?
John's with us here. Do you wanna have his presentation?
Yes, I do.
John Seeger, can you hear us? Can you unmute?
Sorry, I just need to unmute. Yep. Hi, John Seeger, architect, Seeger Architects in Salem, Mass. You guys are pretty familiar with the project, so I'll be mostly reviewing the revisions and changes we made since the last meeting. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So as far as who's controlling the screen, if you don't mind, if we can scroll down to A01, the first floor plans. I'm sorry, A10. There you go. Perfect. I think Giovanni touched on a lot of the redesign in the garage. Essentially, the opening, as you know, has changed to the right-of-way, that side of the street. And we have enlarged the openings for the grates on the wall parallel to the right-of-way, which we'll be able to see in the elevations a little better. I think for the most part, besides the handicap space moving to the closer to the elevator, the plan is pretty much the same, other than changing the entrance. That's the lower level, and it obviously opens out towards the back of the building. The next plan, the first floor plan, if you can scroll over, pan over to the pan on the right a little bit. Yeah, we still have the two main entrances off of Woodburn Street. The one entrance to the left is for the residential, and it serves as a lobby space for the apartments with a stair and elevator. And there'll be mail room as well as intercom in the vestibule. Someone did bring up earlier that we did need to raise the back of the floor for the retail space. Exactly. So you'd be entering the commercial space at grade, and you have an option of either going up the stair or the lift, and it's just about 3 feet. We needed to pop up that floor. It's the upper first floor, but that was to accommodate the cars coming into the garage below it at the lower corner. But you know what? I think overall that it might be pretty playful. If it's a restaurant, you could still have the hostess or seating at the lower level and with a railing, and then up top, it would be maybe the bar, restaurant, or retail. And we're still maintaining the balcony or the deck in the back. That hasn't changed. I think that's the major change for the first floor. And the next sheet, A2, has the second and third floors. As Josh brought up, we changed the number of units from 7 to 6, so that the second floor and third floor have 3 two-bedroom units, and they're basically identical floor plans or floor plates. I think that each one of them has each one of them has a balcony, as well as, or potentially a bay window. But yeah, the plan really is fairly simple in regards to we are maintaining the one egress with the elevator for the common space. But again, the major change is now we have 3 units per floor. I think you can go to the next sheet for, or even one more sheet since the roof plan hasn't changed. This is the elevation, the north elevation facing Woodburn Street. As you can see, we still have the 2 bay windows, one clad in brick and the other one with the metal panels, to help identify the entrances, one for the retail space and one for the residents. What we did take a look at and what we did feel was more appropriate is we changed the third floor to have more of a composite wood planking board, whether it's Dutch lap or shiplap, but it lightened up the structure as well as, I think, create more of a residential feel. If the previous submittal, we had all brick at the top third floor, and after we did this, it really lightened up the building, and I think made it more playful and gave it more of a residential feel. We're really happy with this direction. We are keeping the cornice or eave around the perimeter of the whole building. That would be a composite painted wood material as well. And we still have the precast concrete basically at the banding of the, exactly. You're good at this, at the perimeter of the top of the first floor. And there is awning below that still. But I think the big move was really introducing the clapboard or the planking to lighten up the structure. And then the next slide, we have, yeah, the east elevation, perfect. Is a good view showing how we opened up you can see the garage entrance to the left, and then we introduced wider grates where the verticals are 2 feet on center, and it gives you a better view, or basically a vantage point or view either direction, either pedestrian looking in or the vehicles looking out. Even though we raised the building 3 feet, we're still at 42 feet for the average mean height. But we really just raised the second floor to accommodate how we raised the first floor. So essentially, it's kind of hidden, but the building steps up, as you saw on the plan, right about at that first column. I'm sorry, back towards the front of the street. Yeah, that column there. So the first level is just a little bit below the brick where you enter grade, and then you step up. So the floor is still hidden behind the concrete. And we kept the same storefront fields between the precast concrete columns and banding. And again, we are continuing the composite clapboard siding around the perimeter of the third floor of the building. And the balcony still works at the left side of the building. I think if you can pan down to the lower left, yeah, this elevation faces the existing building, and we had conversations with both the Fire Chief Nielsen as well as the Building Commissioner Brett Brennan about addressing these windows, and so we introduced a basically emergency permanent ladder to the structure. But the building as itself does meet all code, and the building inspector said that this is just an added feature for life safety. But essentially, this is one way that we're trying to address the fire chief's Nelson's concern about them getting fire ladder access in that alley. So the materials we did change to composite on the side because essentially it's not going to be visible for the most part because the other building's in the way. And as you can see, this is just the other side of the balcony. And if you can pan a little bit to the right, yep. This elevation faces the back of the parking lot. Essentially still have the screening for the parking garage and then the balcony or deck for the retail space. And then, as you can see, we are continuing the banding for the composite wood. Yep, and still maintaining the metal clad bays and balconies. I guess we can go to the next slide and just shows a little more perspective of this from a view from Woburn Street looking back at the corner of the building. And from this angle, you can see the bay windows I think kind of create little bookends for the building, the two green ones. I think it kind of holds or frames the building in pretty well. And again, I like the idea that we lightened it up with the composite material up top. And you can start to see, as you go down the right of way, some of the grates and the openings for the garage. Yep, that's a good view too. But it's essentially allows whether you're a pedestrian to view in or a vehicle to view out. And we still are talking about a signaling system, whether or not when a car starts to approach the exit, whether we're going to add a detector to allow, basically what they do in a lot of cities is just allow an alert that a car is coming out for an added protection feature. But I think overall this kind of helped resolve one of the issues we have with opening that up. But I think for the most part, the other renderings are just giving you different views from and the materials for the building, both front, back, and along the easement. But I think this, overall aesthetically, each time we've met, I think there's been an improvement, in a good direction. These axons were really just for the shadow studies. Even though we're increasing the building 3 feet, you can still see that the worst time of year on the right, for the winter solstice, the shadow barely hits the building, and this would be at the most extreme on December 21st at 4:30 in the afternoon. So it really has minimal impact on the neighbors and you folks as well, your town hall. I think for the most part, these were some of the materials and precedents that we introduced earlier as far as dark skylighting, the type of precast concrete around the corners, and the brick work. Well, we changed the balcony railing to brick in the elevations, but this gives you an idea of what the grates might look like to be able to see through better. But I think overall, that pretty much covers the changes for the project. And I think if you have any questions, feel free. Unless Josh needs to chime in on anything, Josh?
Really nothing further as a prima facie case, just if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Questions from the board? Comments?
The last letter I saw from the fire chief said he was still concerned.
Correct. I got the same one from the chief. In fact, when I met with him, we went through, I could elaborate a little bit on it. Essentially, his concerns was having a hand ladder to be able to erect those on the easement where it's angled down the street. And he said that they would have to end up using the truck ladders. Right, so basically they don't make, the ladders can't adjust for the actual slope of the road. So he agreed that at the top of the street or at the bottom of where the parking is, that they would have to use their truck ladders to access this side of the building, the few of the bedrooms on the second and third floor. And then the other one that he brought up too was that he would have to use the truck ladder at the back of the building to get over the balcony. And then this side of the building is the one we're addressing with the egress ladder. Again, the building is fully sprinkled. It meets code with having one egress. It really is something that the chief will share I'm sorry, Captain Nelson will share, which I have already talked to the building inspector about. And as I said, the building inspector was happy that this is an added feature, even though we don't need it to comply with the building code. That I think that would help resolve at least this side because of 3-foot depth.
I need some clarification, because the last email that I have, and I don't know if this is the one Nick was referencing as well, was from Thursday, July 29th, that said specifically that the fire chief had problems with the single staircase, saying with only one stairway and ladder access made difficult by the building, it can't support the building as designed because of challenges in accessing the back part of the building. And the way I read it, it looked like that was with the side ladder access. So I'm just looking for some clarification here.
No, that's correct. As far as he has his concerns and his opinion, and as a right, I mean that's his job to be able to access the building. And again, the building meets code, and the final say will be the building inspector. And again, this is when we go for building permits to be able to get the final building permits for the project.
No.
He didn't say he cannot access the building with the truck ladder.
No.
Stop. So his initial letter had serious concerns about access to and egress from the building. I hate single egress buildings myself. I know they comply with code, but it's always a concern, right? His subsequent letter said you answered his questions, but he still had the same concerns. That is the nature of the second letter. So he's not appeased by anything you've done, and yes, the building inspector says it complies. The fire chief still has to sign off. So that permit, both of those guys get to sign off, and both of those guys get final say according to the building code. So that's a serious concern there, that he's not on board. And yes, you get stuck at building permit time, but that might mean you'd have to add a stair somewhere, like an egress stair off of that balcony or something. And where's that go? So that's why I'm concerned that it changes the nature of the approval if they're going to require some other element off of the building somewhere. I did a building that was similar on a slope like this, and the fire chief wanted no part of having to try and stage emergency measures in the winter when that thing is iced down, right? They're spraying water everywhere, they're working on a slope. That doesn't count as clear space next to a building because they can't work there. The whole, what's it called? That whole right side there, is a dangerous place to stage safety measures in the winter. So I'd like for him to at least say he's okay with something, not just, yeah, you answered my question, but I'm still concerned. It's just not an answer for me.
No, I spoke with him. I acknowledged the letter. He still has concern. It wasn't that. It was, he also had a solution to access it. He just prefers to use the ladder, and which we can't do on the slope. And it's not unique. There are situations where you have the grade isn't exactly right, but he did have a solution with a ladder truck to be able to park on Woodburn and extend it. This is what he shared with me, as well as at the bottom. And you're absolutely right. He still has concerns with it, and I think that if there is any type of
Here's the beginning of the letter. John,
we would have to come back to you guys.
I feel that in summary, the comments are accurate. To be clear, though, I still have the same concerns as I had prior to the meeting. And then he closes with, he talks about all the solutions. They appear to show that it will not work. That's how he closes his email. They appear to show that it will not work. So how do we address that? Because that's a concern. I can't, as a licensed architect, I can't tell you that I can't give you my approval for something that the fire chief says is unsafe. I'm not signing off on that.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm not a licensed architect, but I agree. I can't sign off on something where he says this, in our opinion, puts an occupant at significant risk. I can't do that.
And then there's sightline issues. I'm trying to understand the sightline diagram because the parking inside is 5 feet lower than the roadway that this sightline is supposedly pointing to.
Yeah, I can answer that. So
That blue line, right?
yeah, that blue line. If you were to use a really low riding car, kind of like an exotic sports car, they usually have an eye level at 2.5 feet above grade. Top of the car is about 3 feet. So using those, and I ran the calculations, using those for a car in the garage and a car, say the furthest one up, you would be able to see the top of the cars. Yeah, and that is using the elevation based off of the smallest opening. As it goes down, the opening gets larger. So proving that it works with a low riding car, you can see the top of the car from eye level, and it goes both ways for the car looking in.
Wait, I do have concerns about this opening, right? Because a couple of different reasons, but right, you're in the garage and you're looking up through a slot at the tires of a car coming down. Maybe that's okay. Maybe if they put like a blinking light, I wouldn't want them to put, the annoying, ones that have the noise associated with, but maybe a blinking light saying, car exiting, maybe that works. It probably works better than the sight line. I mean, the sight lines help, right? Having that as a great, but there's probably some other issues there. I'm still stuck at the length and the turning radius of the car that you're using there to design this, because sure, cars aren't generally that works, but people still have those F-150s, right? And they're gonna try and pull in there, it. And the thing that's odd here, right, that we need to understand is this, I probably shouldn't point up here because other people can't see it, but right, we're at one end of the entrance is at 129 elevation, right, coming down to 128, down to 127. You've got this 2 foot over 24 feet, you've got this 2 foot elevation change and then swooping down. So you can do it, right? You can navigate that, but it's not gonna be, it's not a smooth turning effort into there. And I think that they did the right thing, right? Certainly, because if you didn't raise the elevation, it was like, 6 feet or something at that far entrance, 6 feet high or something like that. But so, you certainly need to raise that up, but I'm still not convinced that all works in a way that you can get cars in and out of there, some random person that can't drive very well with a big F-150.
So, just the cross slope right at the entry from here to here will drop, that's about 10 feet.
Yeah.
About, so
that's nice and flat.
It's about a 10% cross slope, but as you move about 3 feet in, it goes to a 5%. So it starts leveling out. So it's not so dramatic or extreme. It starts to level out. And as you go further in, it starts leveling out even more.
Right. It's just that entrance. You do like a little drop down in almost.
Mm-hmm. But the cross slope moving in, I did discuss this with the traffic engineer just from his professional expertise as a traffic specifically, in that field, and he even agreed that the cross slope is not really one of his concerns, you know?
No, like I said, you can get in there,
Mhm.
but, you know, that compound, if that was the only issue, right? But that's not gonna, it's not I still think there's gonna be some issues there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at spot 5 and I'm trying to figure out how you park in. Do you park head in? Or do you do a bunch of maneuvers to turn around inside so you can leave without backing out?
No, I think you back straight out. Well, it depends on how big your car is,
All the way
right?
out, like out the door, out the garage?
I'm more concerned about how you get out of 6. It looks like a multi-point turn to get around there.
Well, I mean, any head in, 5,
Yeah.
6, 7, 8, right, head in, you've gotta turn around, or you might try to turn around, so you're making a bunch of maneuvers. Dang.
And parking spot 6 and 7 are identified as compact cars, so they usually would have a good turning radius.
You should lease out smart cars to people who rent the apartment.
Yeah.
Everybody who rents an apartment gets a smart car. Put like 20 in there.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did.
The good thing about cars as they advance over time, they do get better and better with turning radiuses. They get more technologically advanced for maneuvers for more urban environments. So just, you know, for future, you know, projections of vehicles.
You guys covered most of it.
We covered just about everything. I think the gating factor that we have is the fire department's recommendations or your negotiation with them. And I do worry about the west side of this building, because that's a narrow area. Alley. If you've got an apartment on that side, how do you get to them? If it's a 3rd floor. I'm not sure.
We can open to public comment. You're ready.
Thank you. Are there, may we, yes.
Well, I just have to add, and I may be the only one who says this, but in the change from the all brick into the clapboard or plank on the 2nd story, am I the only one who's not thrilled about that? I think just, especially compared to the building next to it, which is all brick, I feel, and I'm not an architect, I feel like that just, with the green and the plank and the brick, that's kind of a lot going on for the size of building this is. I personally really preferred the brick. And I guess I'm just asking the rest of the board, am I the only one who reacted to that way?
Personally, I like the gray. It does lighten up the top. It's not as heavy a building.
All right.
No, I wish I don't know if you guys still have the plan. I have it, but it was a lot of brick. It made that big window kind of disappear, Heather. The way having sort of the clapboard as the back field, it makes that kind of bay pop out. It's really neat. But you know, it's a small building. It's residential component. Like
You don't need to go back and find the comparison. I saw it, and it may just be a matter of taste. So I couldn't not bring it up.
Well, the other issue, Heather, I'll raise is that when it's all brick, I like it when it's original all brick. So the Charles Street building, or the MF Charles building, that's got a lot of old architectural, you know it's real brick. When they put up a new building that's all brick, it just looks a little too prefab-ish, at least in my mind.
Right.
We have bigger issues than some great Clapboard.
I'd like to open it up to the audience if there are comments or questions. Anybody here?
There's no one on Zoom, but if you're on Zoom and you wanna make a comment, please raise your hand. On the Zoom raise hand, or you can go like this and I'll scroll through and try to find you. Not seeing anybody.
Don't see any.
So the question is, do we,
So I think there's, I guess I think there's two issues that we still need resolved. I think that, although a poll wasn't made, I saw a lot of lot of negative looks about trying to vote on this with the fire. He's not a chief, is he? No. Captain. The fire captain's comment letter, the way it stands right now. So, you know, I guess my suggestion would be that we continue and see if his issues could be advanced, resolved. They could come to an agreement on, right, this isn't the only, right, there's got to be a way through that. I'm not going to even pretend like I know. No, I could suggest something there. I think that's probably the best way at this point. And I'll also say that if we are continuing, getting another look at this graphic. I'm looking on my computer, the graphic with the turning radius. If you can do that same thing with the longer car, and then or one of each, but make sure that we understand what those turning radiuses are on those cars that you're using. And I guess while you're there, right, if you can look at what happens with what spaces were we concerned about, 5, 5 and 6, and see how those would work out. So, right.
My only addition to that, John, would be 5, 6, 7, and 8, because 8 looks a little weird if you're backing up. I wouldn't want to be that close to a wall.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is off the wall by about 6 inches or so, but I totally
right.
understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
so do we have a motion to continue?
Do we have a date and time?
That's another question. That's a Julie question.
Yeah, so 8:30 on September 13th or 9:30 on October 4th.
September time.
Today's date is September.
Yeah.
Yeah, we for something like this. Yeah, I'm trying to be strategic.
No, I
Okay,
understand.
yeah, it's like a huge volume of things.
Herding cats.
So, yeah, okay. So 8:30 on September 13th.
Great, thank you.
CPDC continue the hearing for 18 and 340R to September 13th at 8:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Evan, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Look at her time.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda is hearing definitive subdivision application for 103 Sanborn Lane.
This is another one, the legal ad.
I'm sorry?
There's a legal ad for this one too. Just to read. Yeah, for Heather or Tony or whatever.
I can read it.
Okay.
hold on, I just had to pull it up. Oh, there it goes. Notice is hereby given that pursuant to MGL Chapter 41, Section 81T, Section 6.2.1 of the Reading Subdivision Regulations and Section 4.5 of the Reading Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Regulations, the Community Planning and Development Commission, CPDC, will hold a public hearing on Monday, August 9th, 2021 at 9:30 p.m. in person and in the Select Board Meeting Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Massachusetts, and by including participation through remote and online measures to consider the application for a 3-lot definitive subdivision and stormwater permit submitted by Chimney Hill RE LLC for the land located at 103 Sanborn Lane, Assessors Map 56, Lot 19, which was recently modified through the approval not required A&R process to include the rear portions of the properties known as 105 and 107 Sanborn Lane, Assessors Map 55, Lots 58 and 57 in Reading, Massachusetts. A copy of the application and accompanying plans are available to the public at Town Hall and on the town website the Thursday prior to the hearing.
Do we have representation here from Chimney Hill Real Estate or?
Yes. Oops, good evening.
Good evening.
And thank you for staying up late and hearing us. My name is William Crowley. I'm an attorney. My office is on Haven Street. And I'm here representing Chimney Hill Real Estate, your applicant. Mark Hall is the manager of Chimney Hill Real Estate LLC. And his son Cody is here with us. We also have the property owner, Eric Kaloyanaides. Eric and his wife, Monique, own the subject property. The parties have entered into a purchase and sale agreement, and Chimney Hill will buy this property, provided that we can get approval from this commission for a 3-lot subdivision. And I want to thank you for hearing us tonight. I would also like to thank Andrew for guiding us and shepherding this to the point where we are here today. And I'd also like to thank Jack Sullivan, who I think is out there somewhere. He's on vacation.
Good for him.
He's on vacation this week, and yet he stuck by us and joined us from his vacation. So Jack, thank you.
Yep.
This lot was purchased by Eric and Monique last year and then subdivided, as Julie mentioned. And Eric and Monique live at 107.
105.
Excuse me, 105. So this lot is hatchet-shaped and it kind of wraps around the back of the Kaloyanaides property. On that hatchet-shaped lot is an old, small cape house with a shed behind it. It's all wooded in the back. So our proposal is to take down the house and the shed and bring a road from Sanborn Lane, which at that section of Sanborn, I'm sure you're aware, is a private way. The width of Sanborn Lane up there, after you pass Mariano Drive, it shrinks and it's a bit rough, but it is a private way. I was up there measuring today. With my tape measure, I measured anywhere from 20 feet to at its narrowest point down in front of 117, almost 15 feet wide. So part of our proposal is, and the waivers that we're requesting for this proposal, is to allow for a narrower road right-of-way into the property instead of 60 feet. Make it a 40-foot roadway. We think it would be much more fitting with the nature and the topography up there. That Sanborn Lane is like a quaint country way. We don't have many of those left here in this town. So we think aesthetically, to have a 40-foot wide roadway that feeds into or off of, essentially, and I measured it 18 feet from the driveway to the other side of the road. There might be a couple feet underneath the pine needles on the other side, but it wouldn't look good, frankly. But more importantly, from an engineering perspective, this will come up into a cul-de-sac, and we're asking for a waiver on the width of the cul-de-sac from 60 to 50 feet. And the reason for that is shown on Jack's plan. I believe it's page 6, this proof plan. With the 60-foot right-of-way and 60-foot wide radius of the cul-de-sac, the edge of that cul-de-sac would actually clip the backyard of the Cloyonides, which would then require them to sell a piece of their backyard. And you'll see, the play area where their children play. So naturally, we hope to avoid that. So we're requesting a waiver of the width down to 40-foot right-of-way, 24-foot wide paved sidewalk on one side. It would be on the westerly side. We think would be more appealing, and less impervious surface as well on the easterly side. The 3 lots which would be created would all be more than 20,000 square feet and would have sufficient frontage on the new right-of-way. A few of the other waivers that Jack had put on his list really come from the fact that it is such a small, we're taking one house and making 3, we're adding 2 net. But we're asking to waive the traffic study. We know that it's in an aquifer protection district, but there are no wetlands up there, so we're asking a waiver of the delineation of the wetland resource area. I apologize, my old eyes are having a tough time reading the fine print. But that's the overview of this proposal. Chimney Hill and Mark Hall and his company, MG Hall Contractors, well known in this area. He's been building for decades, quality homes, and this will be a beautiful addition to this neighborhood. The houses which will be up there will fit in with all of those that surround it on Thomas Drive and Lila Lane. It'll be a nice addition to this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the board?
Well, I guess my question is for Julie, and my understanding is that basically for the subdivisions, we're responsible for access via roadways or private ways. And hereby we have a private way that doesn't meet any of the town specs and can be as thin as 15 feet. So is that an issue?
That specific fact has not come up as an issue, no. There are other issues. That has not come up.
I'm not sure on that issue. I'm not sure the condition of the pavement matters, right? Because the right of way is still if they could get agreement with the various owners to pave it wider and they wanted to, they could, right? Because the right of way, the real estate for that right of way is there. So I think that
So I guess the question to the applicant is what is the actual defined right-of-way versus the pavement right-of-way at this point in time
On Sanborn Lane.
on Sanborn Lane?
I mean, it shows it on the plan. I don't know,
You
it
haven't
doesn't.
had a presentation from the project engineer yet, if
Right.
you wanted to do that.
Okay.
Use that.
Yeah, my question is more basic than that. If the proof plan requires the conveyance of that property, and the property is not conveyed, can we even have this meeting?
That's what I was, yeah, that's where I was going.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question, Mr. Safina?
So, the proof plan requires the conveyance of that piece of property to make the proof plan. You need the proof plan.
That
in
extra
order to-
little,
Yeah. But, so you need the basis of the proof plan to say, look, we can do it the way the rules are written, but we wanna waive some things. So the first step is you do the proof plan. The proof plan doesn't work. So can we continue?
well, but that's the basis for the waiver.
But you can't get the waiver.
Until you
Yeah,
can prove.
it doesn't
Yeah,
seem right.
waiver from
Yeah.
It's a little out of order. Right.
I'm not a lawyer. Same with architects.
No, never mind. Just married
I'm
to
not a
one.
lawyer.
So-
If you can't make the proof plan work, you can't get any of the waivers.
The waiver, right, the waiver, from my understanding, the waiver is to reduce the right-of-way or the pavement within that right-of-way. It's not to eliminate the requirement of meeting the proof plan, right, that you can even get 3 lots on here. So, right, we're not, I don't even think we could waive that if we wanted to. So, right, or I would say that I would not be in favor of waiving that, because you're not proving out that this that you're able to fit all these lots on this piece of property.
Yeah, you can't waive the basis for making the proof plan, because then you could say anything. I'll waive the 20,000 square foot requirement for the land.
So what we will be required to do, and we'll have this conversation, is to amend the purchase and sale agreement and have to redesign the lot niceties to convey that additional 2,000 square feet to make that work.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's a technicality, right? It's just the way it's written that. I don't understand how we get to that point yet. That's all. Do you need all of that? Do you just need half of that?
Do we need all?
We need 2,000, this is Jack Sullivan, we need 2,000 square feet
Okay.
from number 105. But I think what we were trying to do is show that it could be done. We could do it, on our lotting plan, which is sheet number 2, we could create a parcel A that would be conveyed to this subdivision, so that it supports the proof plan. But then if you grant the waiver, then is the 2,000 square feet that you added on even needed at that point? I guess that's the question.
I hear what you're saying, but it'd be like saying you have a proof plan that's not on your property. Right? Like, let's say it wasn't 2,000 square feet, let's say it was 6,000 square feet, all the way down to the house. Right? You certainly couldn't come here with a straight face and say your proof plan works. Right? If it was just 1 more foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, doesn't matter. The law or the rule says you have to do the proof plan on your property. So you have to convey that first, I guess convey it back after, I guess. I don't know.
No, I think it needs to be part of the overall development tract.
It has to
Like,
stay on it.
I don't know, I'm not an attorney, but I would think so.
Can't tell you.
It's just hard to grapple.
That's what I'm stuck on.
Yeah.
Everything else, makes sense.
Well, Jack, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there, so I think what you said, Attorney Crowley, is correct. We'll talk with the owner, they'll have to modify the P&S agreement, and that, however we do it, we need to convey that 2,000 square feet. We'll call it parcel A, and it'll become part of the subdivision. I can do that on sheet 2 and show it to be conveyed to the existing larger parcel, and then that would support the proof plan.
All right, so with that, then seems to me there's not much sense to move too much further. I would request a continuance then to the next available date. And if you don't mind, since we were last tonight, can we be first on the next, at the next meeting?
I'm one step ahead of you, Bill.
Thank
you.
I guess, I would suggest, I don't know if anyone has any other comments that could be, given the hour, it could be quick, but right, if there's other obvious things to discuss, to get out on the table, then maybe we just get them out there so that, we don't waste people's time again and do these,
I just have one more quick one. I see a waiver to for topography. Right, but the waiver for the topography within 100 feet. I really do think we need to see what's happening at the property edges at the very least, so we understand where water's going and stuff and not flowing into other people's yards. So, there has to be some extension of that. Maybe it's not 100 feet, but it's certainly probably just across that property line, right? We have to understand what the water's doing.
Okay. Jack, did you hear that?
Yep, I can add that, if that's a concern. The town has good topographical maps and 2-foot contours. I can add that to the plan.
Okay.
I'd also still like to see electrical service and street lighting. You're asking to have that waived. I think you're going to need it.
Yeah, we were hoping to put in some like residential post lights for each to try to not have like full street lights, but we could show some sort of detail of what we're proposing and then run it by the members to see if it's acceptable. We didn't want to do conventional street lights. We were trying to keep it more like a village type development with like post lights for each house. But if it's a concern, we could add a street light.
And you're doing underground electrical, is that correct?
Yep, it'll all utilities will be underground, telephone, electric, and cable underground. And we're showing street trees. We'll have water and sewers available on Sanborn Lane. We'll be extending water and sewer into the development, and there'll be a hydrant placed at the end of the cul-de-sac.
All right, then we'll need to see those things on the plan. Are there comments from the public? Yes.
Hi there, Leah Barton, 23 Thomas Drive. I'm in a butter along with several of my neighbor friends here. I have 2 questions. One around trees and scope of trees being planned to be taken down, as between a butter property lines and this proposed subdivision. So if we could speak to that. And then secondarily, I guess in terms of procedure and process, I am an attorney, but I'm not specialized in this area. So this appears to be a approved plan, but it doesn't sound as though we're well positioned to move forward with the approved plan yet. So if you could walk us through kind of the mechanics around this so that we can be better prepared to kind of participate in the process.
Well, I guess, so the issue with the proof plan of why, right, if you look at what's on there, there's a piece of the right-of-way that's not on property that they own, right? And so they can't necessarily prove out that they can develop this subdivision without that piece of property. So that's sort of like the first thing before we go, we need to prove, before they ask not to do stuff, they need to prove that they could just comply with all the rules as they are by the town of Reading.
So if that piece is conveyed, then what? What's next?
They would come back, we'd have another hearing, or public meeting.
This
Would-
is the
yeah.
continued.
Yeah, this would be continued, in which we would go through probably the issues that you are interested in discussing, so, right, trees, I'm guessing some drainage,
Topography, runoff,
drainage issues,
drainage,
yeah,
statement, I appreciate
construction
that.
phasing,
I would also ask
Lighting.
too, I'm sorry, finish
like,
your thought.
yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, what usually comes up, lighting stuff, so.
Curious too how this converted from, I think it was there was at least one lot that was not buildable back, I don't know, a year ago, and things have pivoted. I don't know if that's because it went from a 4-home plan to a 3. If I don't know if anyone has context around that. Or if it's-
Where did you get the term not buildable from?
That was, I don't know, Andrew, if that was you. We were going back and forth with the Grassos, so things.
So on the A&Rs, lots can be deemed non-buildable during the A&R process because they don't currently meet frontage requirements, but where the applicant is now proposing to build a way, right of way, he's creating that frontage, which then almost unlocks the ability to develop what was previously had no frontage.
So that's what cured that issue. And then for trees, what is the plan around tree removal? You know, again, as it relates to the abutters' property lines.
I can answer that. This is Jack Sullivan. So on sheet 3 of 8, the existing conditions plan, we located all the trees 6 inches or larger on this property. And what I'll do is I'll add an additional sheet to this plan set showing what trees will be retained. And obviously, we're going to try to retain as many trees as we can along the abutting lot lines to the development. But that'll give a good sense of what existing tree canopy will remain post-construction.
That would be helpful, Jack. Thanks. Not only for those of us who live there today, but I would imagine prospective buyers would want some form of privacy line as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just, I guess I'll make one more point though, that the subdivision law, the subdivision bylaw hasn't been rewritten in a long time, right? And it's kind of extreme, it's very large. And so the waivers that applicants typically ask for bring that footprint down, which is beneficial to the surrounding neighborhood. So that's why they're almost always entertained, right? We don't need a 60-foot wide roadway to get to 3 houses.
Yeah, they were developed back when, right, we wanted big wide roads, you know, big everything, and right, our sense of development, right, we want to sort of minimize pavement and that sort of thing. So the process now sort of involves a lot of waivers because it's better for everyone. It does reduce developers' costs, but it also gets a development that's sort of more fitting with I think what we all want, which is, you know, one thing is less pavement. So.
Yeah, no, that's helpful context. Thank you.
Jim
Yes.
Stone, 52 Lime Lane, I'm behind this. My question is just regarding the drainage. What is the process for determining whether the drainage plan is actually sufficient? For example, looking at the plan, there's an area that's indicated as a drainage area and so on. But having been there 30 years, I know how the water flows back there. And there is a significant concern about, not so much on my property, but on a couple of the other ones. It's not at all clear to me how what's on the drawing is actually going to mitigate the runoff that's going to be generated by this significant increase in impervious area. So how do you all get to a place where you say, yep, that's acceptable? I just don't know, so that's why I'm asking.
When it comes to that, we really rely a lot on the town engineer because none of us are, you know, are stormwater experts. And so there's usually a report that is very thick with all sorts of how they break it up into different like watershed areas and identify sort of the runoff. But I think step one is getting the topography right and sort of us all understanding the topography. And if something doesn't quite look right to you, then we, you know, or abutters or to us, if we're out on the property, then that's something that, you know, not all it's, you know, the base information isn't always right, so we wanna.
That would precede the town engineer's work.
Yes,
going into more
yes,
detail.
yeah, yeah, and that was one of the things that we just asked for, is make sure that we have all the topography.
But to be clear, I think, Jack, you've already done some analysis on this, and the town engineer has commented on that initial analysis, correct?
That's right, and just to give a quick summary on the drainage is where we go out and we excavate soil test holes to look at soil types and where the seasonal high groundwater table is in the springtime. The town engineer is out on site with me. We did a series of 4 test holes on this property. And then, as one member said, we look at how water drains for the proposed roadway, how the lots will drain. We put in a series of deep sump catch basins, storm scepters. We're putting in an underground infiltration field, and we have an overflow. So for a storm that's greater than the 100-year storm, there's a release so you don't surcharge the system. So it's not only reducing the amount of stormwater in the post-development condition, but it's also water quality. By putting in deep sump catch basins and storm scepters, when water coming off the roadway, you collect silt, dirt, other materials, it gets cleaned out. So it's in the drainage infiltration field has to be sited 2 feet above the seasonal high groundwater as well, so that, you know, the water that moves back into the water table has been treated. So it's a treatment level that the town engineer is looking for, and also peak rates and volumes of runoff. And I'm tasked with preparing a detailed drainage report that's, you know, 70 to 100 pages thick, that the town engineer reviews and makes comments on. So I believe he's reviewed it. He had some comments. I'm away this week, but it's something I'll look at. But I've done enough of these. I know what's asked for and what's to be done, and it's something we'll look at.
Thank you.
And just one thing I can add related to that is that this is the first project that you'll see that actually requires the stormwater permit, which is in your jurisdiction because there is no conservation jurisdiction on this property. So we are waiting for them to fill out an application for that as well. And you do have a comment in the Zoom.
Please, go ahead.
Bruce and Martha. Bruce and Martha.
Hello, thank you. My name's Martha Moore. I live at 102 Sanborn Lane, so I'm right across the street from the entrance to this development. And for full disclosure, I'm also a member of the Conservation Commission here in Reading. And my question is, can you also produce a plan that shows the contour lines that you're planning to have after you have done the development? I look through and all I see is the existing contour lines.
Yep. Hi, Martha, Jack Sullivan.
Hi, Jack.
I do show proposed contours on the street, on the plan that's up on the screen in front of me now. There are proposed contours shown, and there is some proposed grading shown between the lots. But I can add some additional, the proposed contours are a darker line. Yeah, Andrew, I think you're pointing at them. Yep.
Top left.
All right, so there are the
It's like a
straight
V.
lines on the street there. I see those.
Yep, and there's some between like lot 1 and lot 2, you see between the houses how yep, right through there, how it's graded. There's some to the rear of lot 2 showing how it would go. So we did provide some, but I can beef that up and add some additional detail.
Okay, thanks. I looked for it and I just couldn't recognize it on the plan, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Do we have a motion to continue then?
Can I ask one other quick question?
Yes.
But no wetlands concerns? There's no issue?
No,
around-
apparently not.
Okay, so that's been asked and answered. Thank you.
It's rare in Reading.
I was hoping for
Usually underwater.
open a full rabbit out of the hat. Thank you.
Just litter it with salamanders.
Please don't give anyone any ideas.
Then they'll get arrested for capturing the salamander.
So is there a motion
When do we want to
continue
To when?
till,
So I was saving 7:30 on the 13th for this one. If that's
September 13th?
7:30 on September 13th.
We'll move the Cpdc continue the public hearing for
definitive subdivision at 103 Sanborn Lane to September 13th at 7:30.
Second?
All in favor?
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to keep you up so late.
It's not you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Leah.
Can I ask one more question? Do you all know
I
if
did it. They're not
there's a
done. Don't worry
limit
about it.
to how many houses can be built in a neighborhood where there's only one way in and one way out?
How much land is there?
The answer is how much land there is? I don't know. So when is the maximum in that neighborhood?
Doesn't matter, as long as there's land.
Oh, as long as there's land. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
and
my answer.
access to that land.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So I was supposed to ask at the end of this meeting, how is the hybrid system working?
We're not done yet.
Couple other items of business.
We do.
Okay. Do we wanna do Johnson Woods real quick?
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you guys looked at that. It's a letter of credit from 2014 for completion of a portion of Taylor Drive servicing 39 Taylor Drive, which was completed and occupied, a long time ago. And engineering is satisfied and you can release it.
Motion to release the letter of credit, number 401 for 39 Taylor Drive in Johnson Woods.
Second.
All in favor?
I respectfully recuse myself.
Hi.
Sir. Okay. 40 Grove Street subdivision.
Did that.
Hear
Did
that.
that, yeah,
No minutes.
good.
Thanks, though.
Good luck with tonight's minutes.
We weren't.
Oh.
Normally we try to type them at the same time, but we just too much to manage tonight.
There's a lot of boldface text in tonight's minutes.
The outsourcing.
So, do we have a motion to retire?
Debrief?
Yes,
To
the
debrief.
debrief, and you had a shout out, I think, for generous.
I do have a shout out if anybody is still online. I wanted folks to know that 625 Main Street, Washington Apartments, those folks are in dire need of funding, and Reading Cooperative is taking care of those needs through donations. So if there's anybody who can and would like to donate, that would be terrific. Again, Reading Cooperative. And it's on, I think it's on
There's a
the
link
town
on
website.
the front page of the town website, yes.
Right, that's how I learned about it. So the next question was, how did the hybrid system work?
I'll say from here, this owl thing is pretty darn cool. There were just a couple of times, and I think Karen experienced it when she was unmuting, where it would cut out like every 10th word or something like that, but that was only temporary. I mean, I sent Julie a screenshot. She may have seen this. It is so cool where I can see whoever on Cpdc was talking. Then it would pivot and I could see who from the public or the proponent was talking. And then there's this band where I see the entire room. I mean, it's cool. The chairs there are more comfortable, but than here. But from where I sit, if you're comfortable, I know so many people are comfortable being online right now anyhow, I thought it worked really, really well.
Good.
I have no idea how it looked to you guys being there.
It would be nice to have the video screen of everybody that's online, like we would if we were on a Zoom call.
Yeah, it doesn't feed anyone who isn't showing video to this screen.
So the people that were talking that we couldn't see video was because they didn't have their video up.
Yes, so I can
that's-
see them on my screen like a regular Zoom meeting.
Where
They
it just
don't-
has the name or what, or
Yeah.
their.
We can't
their
change
setting.
that.
This
setting.
doesn't feed,
Yeah.
this doesn't feed that information.
Well- Well, that's just good.
Yeah.
That's just good to know, cause you're not, if they're not up there, that means they don't have video on.
Right,
And we
that's what it
can
means.
change that setting, I believe, so it shows their name. I believe we can do
We
that.
can,
I think so.
even if they don't have video showing.
Yes, it would just be their name, like the normal
Okay.
Zoom.
Alright.
Um,
We did get a comment from Karen.
But everyone when they were talking, except for maybe Karen, most people when they were talking had their video on, so you could see them, moving around from where I was on Zoom. If I found their face, I could find them and see them.
Heather, sorry, Karen did send me a chat, that, hold on, expand it a little since. She said the video was fuzzy and it was hard for her to tell who was in the meeting room. And then I know she also had some audio issues as well. Maybe she's sending me more. Maybe she wants to just join in. Karen, is that from you saying you could hear everybody? Someone just chatted me and I can't hear
it's from
Yes, it must still be from her.
Yes, it is. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
So can you not hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, so I'm not used to unmuting myself, and so I apologize. I expect the host to unmute me, but I can hear all of you perfectly.
Okay,
Great.
terrific. That's good news.
I think sitting here in the room, it works. I mean, it seemed to work. That was the one thing that seemed a little bit odd is, not knowing exactly when people were speaking if they didn't have their video up.
Right.
Speaker is phenomenal though.
Yeah,
It's a pretty
yeah.
good speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for Heather and Karen and anyone else, when someone in the audience was speaking, did you find that the owl found them and went to them like relatively quickly?
Yeah, like it even just so it didn't go to you just there. When you and Andrew were talking, for some reason it doesn't always pivot to you. Like I'm still on John and Pam. But for the most part, yeah, it would split the screen so that and I could see who would in the audience seating was talking.
My guess is that you're a little quiet when you talk. See how it's moving over to where I am now?
Yeah, see there I can see. Oh, do you guys see the same thing?
Yes.
I can't wait to be there and see what you
Yeah.
see. But yeah, see now I see Tony
Yep.
and Nick and Pam still.
Once it locks on to somebody, I think it's fairly quicker to find them as well. So where we didn't talk a lot tonight, it's probably trying to locate
It's not finding you at all.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's.
It's not, which is weird. Because earlier it did, just like moments ago it found you.
I think because I had just spoken, because it's smart and it learns over the course of the meeting. So if you're someone who talks a lot, it knows you're there, it can find you. We don't need it showing us. And then, Karen, you were saying the video was fuzzy for you. Do you?
So Heather is very clear. Like her picture is clear, her voice is clear. All the voices were really clear, but the picture of you all sitting up at the select board desk is fuzzy. Just now, Julie, you were talking, it didn't pivot to you, so you are a tiny little square, and the audience in the select board room, anyone who spoke from there was just a tiny little square. But when it pivots to Heather, she comes up as a large, speaker. So
It's not pivoting to Heather because Heather's
The other
not in
thing
the
I
room.
did, and it may just be what you do in Zoom, because I figured out how to, on my computer screen, I would swap the screen share and the talking when we were discussing, and I could make basically all of the owl screens big. So I don't know, I was able to do it. But I know what you're saying, Karen.
I definitely haven't figured out how to make the owl screens bigger. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Heather's on Zoom, so
Click
when
on
she
the owl and see if it gets bigger.
Really?
A comment.
Yes, Mr. McKenzie.
Go ahead.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so Bruce McKenzie, I think this camera is focusing on the clock, thinking that the ticking of the clock is someone speaking. And that, basically, the clock is in our screen all by itself. And I wonder if a person in the audience, maybe if they came forward or came to a specific location or, made a noise, like, cleared their throat or clapped their hands, maybe the camera might switch to it.
All right, 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent. It's not moving at all. Oh,
It is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It found you.
All right, it took a moment.
So
All
it
right.
can take a second, but I don't know if it can hear the clock or not.
Well, I think,
Noise is bothering it.
Yes. It
say it
does.
again.
When we're speaking through our masks, it's muffling it. Maybe it's not getting that sharpness.
And also, IT told me when you start talking, like you should start loudly, like sharply and loudly.
there you go.
There
Yes, yeah.
But I was
Worked,
loud.
Julie.
So, and, like, and then you can
Everyone gets a
be
gap.
more involved.
But it is true, Julie. I don't know if because you and Andrew, I don't know if you're further from the owl, but for some reason the two of you are blurry. But when it focuses on other people, it's crisper.
It's I bet you it's
You
the
can shut
lighting
these lights
overhead
off.
here
Actually, we
is
should
brighter.
when we-
Oh
This
yeah.
row- This row of fluorescence is lighter,
Right
is
there,
brighter.
Which actually,
This one?
yeah.
Oh,
So that, I don't know that
I can
helped,
see
but
that I'm blurry.
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
You are too, though, John. But
In that shot.
yeah, in this shot.
But you guys are good to use this next week and moving forward.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
this,
fine.
yeah.
yeah, I'm glad it worked out as well as it did.
Yeah, I forgot we have a meeting next week. I'm gonna be remote next week also, and then my son gets his first vaccine in like 2 weeks, and then I'll start showing up in person.
Works.
Alright.
We can keep talking about it as we go.
Yeah.
If things change, like in the world.
We have to give Nick the video in Mullen Rule if he wants to vote. Just
Which
FYI.
one is it for?
For Hopkins, if there
Hopkins.
is even a vote.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
One quick one, if I may.
Please.
I've been thinking lately, and I think, especially with what people have said tonight, I'm questioning if we're allowing just too much of the residences on the waivers, where what they should be getting is roughly 1 per 2,000 square feet, and they're going 3, 4, 5 times more units.
I don't understand the.
Yeah.
Well, the 2,000 square feet is 20 units per
Oh,
acre.
yeah, units per acre.
So they're allowed, if they've got, say, a 4,000 square foot lot, they're allowed 2 units, and they come out with 8 or more. So you've got 4 times as many as were originally allowed. I don't know if, as a board, that's a concern, but it's something to think about. And I'd rather send that message now as opposed to allowing somebody to come in with a lot of units and then we say, no, sorry, we're not gonna grant the waiver. So they can make a determination. Maybe there should be, not an official policy, but a kind of a limit that we say. You can do twice as many, but not 8 times as many.
I'll say, my thinking in the past has been that it is that there are a lot of other things typically that have to work in order to be able to get that much density and being the environment that we're in, right? And we have no like green fields kind of, development sites that those things usually don't work. In the case that someone comes up with a great idea, then maybe it does, but, right? The caveat to that is there is someone that came up with a great idea to solve the parking issue, right? With the city lift, and in general, right, that sort of, they solved that issue, but I think the feeling was it was just too much anyways, so.
Obviously oversized, regardless of whether they were meeting some parameter for parking.
Right.
And same thing here, I'll not discuss it, because we can get back to it.
Yeah, you know, when I first looked at that, the thing that surprised me, and maybe I was like, gosh, this is so huge. How far off are they on the floor area ratio? Because I remember that was a number that came into the negotiations with the Chronicle building. And it surprised me where it looked like they were actually under the floor area ratio, which made me wonder, maybe I'm not using that number correctly, because it was so.
Sorry, we need to stop you, Heather.
Oh, that's right, yes, yeah, sure, that's fine.
We're all shouting, I have no idea what she even said.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, yeah.
As only Tom Malone would say, never mind.
Never mind, I was just thinking it through in terms of, Tony, what you were saying in terms of the bylaw.
Yep. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
In favor? Done for the
Raise
night.
their hand.